Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome to this meeting of Oxford City Council. Please note this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Members, please make sure your phone is either turned off or silent, and you may leave and come back at any time. But please indicate to the clerk if leaving completely. As we have members who are observing Ramadan, I propose we go for a break slightly earlier than usual at 6 p.m. and return to the chamber at 7 p.m. to allow time for iftar and prayer. Please note that as Lord Mayor, I have the casting vote on any tied vote this evening, and I reserve the right to use this. Item 1, apologies for absence. Can I request the Committee and Member Services Manager to announce any apologies that have been received ahead of this meeting?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We have received apologies from Councillors Hunt, Kerr, Morris and Walcott.
Item 2, members, do you have any declarations of interest? Apologies. Yeah.
Sorry, can I just note the apologies of Councillor Imogen Thomas and Councillor Duncan?
Thank you. Councillor Gant.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On declarations of interest, I'd like to declare an interest in respect of the...
Oh no, it's not here for declaration of interest, just apologies at the moment. Yeah, we were just coming on to it. Okay. Yeah, that's a declaration. So, item 2, members, do you have any declarations of interest relating to business in today's agenda? Councillor Saj Malik?
You do it. Item agenda on the taxi licensing issue, so I'm a taxi driver. So I'll take the legal advice, probably need to leave the chamber when it comes up.
Councillor Gant?
Thank you, as I was saying. I'd like to declare an interest in respect of the motion on transport policy as it refers to my portfolio responsibilities in the County Council, so I won't take part in that session.
Thank you. Members, if any subsequent interest become apparent, please raise it at the relevant item. We now come to the minutes from the previous meetings. Do members approve the minutes from the Council meeting on Monday the 29th of January 2024? Thank you. Do members approve the minutes from the Budget Council meeting on Wednesday the 18th of February 2024? Thank you. We now come to the item 4, announcements. I attended the SHE Awards, which stands for Salute, Honour and Excellence, on Friday the 8th of March, which was on International Women's Day. I was recognised and celebrated for my dedication and hard work within the community. I also attended the National Peace Symposium at Europe's largest mosque, Bet al-Futuh, on the 9th March 2024. This event aimed to promote deeper understanding between those of faith and those of none, to inspire a concerted effort to achieving lasting peace. #Voices for Peace. The keynote address was delivered by His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. As part of my announcements this evening, I am pleased to welcome a guest to address Council in relation to the motion that we passed in November on the situation in Gaza and Israel. Members will recall that we resolved to invite an address from the Mayor of Ramallah, Isa Kassis. Understandably, however, the Mayor of Ramallah has been unable to respond to that request. Therefore, with cross-party agreement, I have invited Dr. Husam Zomlot, Head of the Palestinian Mission to the UK, to address us this evening. David, would you please kindly bring in Dr. Zomlot to the front of the chamber? David, can you hear me? Thank you. Dr. Husam Zomlot, you are very welcome. Please can I invite you to address the chamber?
Thank you very much. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Lord Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. And let me begin by wishing you all a Ramadan Mubarak, in this very holy month, blessed month of Ramadan. Allow me first, please, to convey the sincere greetings of Isa Qassis, the Mayor of Ramallah, who sends his regards and the greetings of the Palestinian leadership and people to you and your council and your great city. One of my first duties here as an ambassador was in effect signing the twinship agreement between Oxford and Ramallah in 2019. What an honor, what a moment was it. And few cities can be compatible as Oxford and Ramallah in every sense. Both are centers of academic excellence. Both draw peoples from across their respective countries and the world. Both are open and tolerant cities with vibrant cultures, innovative business environments, and long, long histories. Of course, the similarities go only so far. Ramallah is a city under military occupation, so is Palestine, and at no time has this occupation been more deadly or unhinged. Ramallah suffers daily incursions by the Israeli military and Israeli settlers, surrounded by checkpoints, its land being confiscated, and the city itself is bordered by Israeli military walls and checkpoints. Moreover, as we watch in horror, the carnage in Gaza, Ramallah is a city in mourning. The city, that is Ramallah, did not turn on the Christmas light last year. It has not turned on the Ramadan lights during this very season of the holy month of Ramadan. Genocide is no time for celebration. And make no mistake, my friends, about it. Genocide is what the Palestinian people in Gaza are facing. It is a full-fledged genocide. So Lord Mayor, councillors, you will by now be depressingly familiar with the numbers and what has been taking place. More than 100,000 dead or wounded. Most by far are women and children. 1.9 million people, 85% of Gaza's population displaced from their homes. 1.5 million people driven to the southernmost tip of Gaza at Rafah, the city of my birth. Forced to live in overcrowded shelters with no running water, no electricity, no food, and diseases are spreading. Imposed starvation of an entire population. Already 26 Palestinians have died from malnutrition. 26. 23 of them are children. International aid organizations are warning that 1 in 3 children under 2 years old in Gaza's north are suffering acute malnutrition. The wholesale destruction of Gaza's civilian infrastructure, from housing to hospitals, from schools and universities to mosques and the churches. And Israel has an obsession with hospitals. Only this morning they invaded the Shifa hospital in Gaza, which is the central hospital for all the people in the north, and reports of many casualties. People are being killed and many arrested. Mostly doctors, by the way, and medical staff. This was always a war on the Palestinian people from day one. And the only way to end it is to once and for all, the only way to end this war is once and for all secure the liberation of the Palestinian people across all the occupied territory from Israel's oppression and occupation. This, of course, needs to start with an immediate ceasefire, as you, this very honorable council, called for by this council as far back as November. And we acknowledge and we salute your principled position early on to call for an immediate ceasefire. It demands, after a ceasefire, massive humanitarian assistance and reconstruction programs that will only be sustainable if there are no Israeli restrictions and no siege on Gaza. The siege on Gaza must end. It must be followed by a determined push by everyone interested in peace for a just solution that will see Palestinian people secure our rights to freedom and self-determination in a state of our own. And the right of Palestinian refugees to return is also upheld. It may sound a hopeless enterprise right now, but it is not. It is not. In fact, we must seize this moment to spur us on, because we can reach a just solution. It demands nothing more and nothing less than a clear-eyed focus on delivering the outcome international law, international resolutions calls for. But in order to get there, Israel must be held accountable in a way that it has not been held accountable before. Israel must see that the world will no longer allow it to continue to get away with the many war crimes committed in Gaza or the many war crimes it has committed in the West Bank and all over Palestine. Never again applies to all of us, not the few of us. Never again we should see the mass murder of children. Never again we should see the mass destruction of homes and hospitals and schools. Never again we shall see the use of starvation and disease as weapons of war. And I'm sure many of you have followed the UN reports lately of the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war in Gaza and in the West Bank. So, city councils like Oxford's can help in this endeavor. The British government needs to turn its words into actions. And the best way to do so is to impose sanctions on settlements and suspend arms sales to Israel. When the International Court of Justice admits and rules that the crime of genocide, which is the crime of all crimes, brought by South Africa against Israel, is plausible, then the court, the highest court of the world, has officially put Israel on trial for genocide. Then exportation of arms become a complicit participation in the crime of genocide. And this is the real leverage if we want to stop this, is to stop sending them the weapons that end up in the bare bodies of our children, of our mothers, of our innocent people. That will provide accountability, my friends. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Palestine question did not start on the October 7th. It started 170 years ago with the Balfour Declaration of this very country. We remain more determined than ever to achieve liberation, to achieve our freedom, and to look forward to a just peace. And we do. We look forward to you, and we look to each and every one of you, and those like you, for support and moral clarity, to remind your government of its responsibilities under international law and under British law, under UK law. The road to peace, my friends, will be long and hard, we realize. But we will continue the long journey to freedom, as once Nelson Mandela said. We will continue this long journey undeterred. Undeterred. And the more people who walk with us, the more people who will walk with us, like you, and the millions in the UK, in Europe, in the US, and everywhere. The more people who will walk with us, the shorter the distance and the easier the task. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all for what you have done and will be doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would now like to request the Leader of the Council, Councillor Susan Brown, to please kindly respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you so much, Dr. Zomlot, for speaking to us here today. I'm really incredibly grateful to you for accepting the invitation of our Lord Mayor, which had cross-party support from across the council chamber. We had, as I think has already been said, invited the Mayor of Ramallah to address us, and for very understandable reasons that hasn't been possible. But you are a very, very able substitute, and we obviously share the huge pain and sorrow that people in both Gaza and Ramallah are experiencing at the moment. I think, like many people in this chamber, I came into politics through the peace movement, and I think it is our greatest wish that there should be peace in Gaza and Ramallah, and we want to see both states recognised properly. That is absolutely where this council stands. You quite rightly acknowledge the fact that we unanimously called for a ceasefire back in November, and that's needed so much more today. I think all of our hearts bleed seeing the appalling humanitarian crisis that we have currently in Gaza. As a city council, we will do everything we can to support our twin city of Ramallah, and we will be very grateful if you can take back our greetings and our sorrow and our sympathies to the Mayor of Ramallah on our behalf. And I thank you again for coming today to speak to us. Ramadan Mubarak. Sorry, it's me again. Sorry, folks. Yes, so I have a few announcements to make. There are... you can carry on applauding in a moment, because I'm going to announce the civic offices for next year, which is an exciting point of our municipal year. So I'm very delighted to be able to announce those posts for next year. First of all, our Lord Mayor is going to be Councillor Mike Brown. So, our Deputy Lord Mayor will be Councillor Thiago Correa. And Councillor James Fry is going to pick up the last of the three civic offices, the one who hasn't yet held to become our sheriff. So, congratulations. I should say that James is subject to re-election, so I'm confident that that will happen. So, I've got a few other announcements to make. This is, of course, the last council before the elections, and therefore we are often at a point where sometimes we know who's standing down and who's not coming back, and sometimes we don't. And of course, none of us know for certain who's going to be back in the chamber. But I do know of a number of people who are not and have made the decision not to stand again. So first of all, I'll just touch briefly on one who has already announced his resignation, but subsequent to our last council meeting, and that's Councillor Tom Hayes. And I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to say something about Tom, because he was a councillor for a long time, and he contributed a lot during his time on this council. He was a cabinet member. He was absolutely fundamental in setting up the Citizens' Assembly on climate change, and really fundamental in terms of our pathway to becoming a zero carbon city. So I think, as everybody knows, Tom has gone off to hopefully become the next Labour MP for Bournemouth, and we wish him great luck in that particular endeavour. But there are some other people as well around the chamber that I also wanted to say, pass on my thanks to, and to make sure we recognise their achievements. One is Councillor Tom Landell-Mills, who I understand to not be standing again. I can't actually see him, so, but we thank him for his long service on this council, and that hope he enjoys not being a councillor for a while at least. He may come back at some point in the future, who knows. I also wanted to touch on Lucy as well. Lucy, we're very sorry to see you go. You will be very much missed, and you've done a fantastic job in Chair of Scrutiny. So, genuinely wish you well in your future career and endeavours, and I'm sure we'll be hearing plenty about you in the future. So, thank you very much for your service to the people of Oxford. I also wanted to mention Councillor Shaister-Aziz. So, Shaister, I was sorry when you left our group, and I'm really sorry about the reasons for that as well. And we wish you all the very best. Again, I'm sure that we'll be hearing plenty more about you in the future. But thank you very much indeed for all the service that you have given to this council and to this city. It's really very much appreciated. And finally, last but not least, I'm really sorry to say that Councillor Ray Humberston has decided that he's, as he approaches his 75th birthday, he might be hanging up his councillor clogs and taking a bit more time with his fantastic wife Bev. And we're incredibly sorry to see Ray go. He's spent huge amounts of time dedicated to the city, nearly 19 years as a councillor. He's held every civic office, and he's been an absolutely stalwart champion for the people of Blackford Leys over many, many years. One of the very first people to move into the estate in Greater Leys, and has been a fantastic representative for that area. And so I'm just going to call very briefly on Ray to say a few words to Council. Ray, over to you.
Thank you, Susan. To ask the Yorkshireman to say a few words can turn to a very long night. It has been a privilege and a pleasure. It really has. I've worked alongside some great councillors of all sides. I know we have our differences, but I think deep down we're here to help people. Forget the politics, that's what we're here for, to help people. And to further emphasise that point, I've been helping Thames Valley Police with their inquiries for century, for years. It's a joke, by the way, right? Past and present, people like the late Val Smith, Jean Fuchs. My abiding memory of Jean is when I was Lord Mayor. And I was on the way to Bonn, and we were in Belgium, in Brussels railway station. And I had two suitcases, one for my own coat and one for the roads. And Jean became my baggage handler. So that vision will stay with me for life, because of Jean toddling on behind me, pulling my suitcase. But that was Jean. So yeah, thank you each and everybody for being such fantastic company. And putting that was a joke. But what I don't do, I don't make political jokes, because I have a habit of being getting into well, it's not stopped rushing, has it? So yes, thank you very much, each and every one of you. I shall think of all this when I walk past in the street. I shall walk past with a big smile on my face and think, oh, what's going on here and all the misery. And you've been fantastic comrades and colleagues. fantastic. Hurrying up with me for a start. And so, thank you, each and every one of you, and all the best for the future. I'm not going yet.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to call on the City Rector.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, so much. Thank you, everybody. Very conscious after what we heard earlier that now is probably not the time for one or two of my rambling anecdotes. So I'm going to switch direction if I may. And I think that this evening is a good time to be thankful for one another, and as we've just heard, for all that we have in common and our service to others. I also think this evening is indeed a good time to remember the suffering around the world, and especially as we've heard this evening in Gaza, etc., and the suffering of the children and of the vulnerable, and so on. But the suffering around the world. And if I may say, I think that this council is so good at honouring that and marking that. I also think it's a good time of year to be reminded of hope. And as our speaker said, we must not be hopeless. So wherever we are in these things, in our belief systems, may it be a blessed and hopeful spring. May it be a blessed and hopeful Ramadan. May it be a blessed and hopeful Passover. May it be a blessed and hopeful Easter. Thank you all so much for this evening, and I wish you well in the forthcoming elections, etc. We'll be thinking of you.
Thank you very much. I now move to item 5, which is public addresses and questions that relate to matters for decisions at this meeting. David, can you please bring in Mr. Bashir Ahmed, President of COLTA?
Lord Mayor.
Welcome.
Lord Mayor, hello. Do I need to stay or shall I leave?
You can stay because it's only a public address.
Thank you.
And I would like to welcome you, Mr. Sajid Malik and... Sajid Khan. Sajid Khan and Mr. Bashir Ahmed. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your address.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen. It just certainly puts things into perspective, if I may say. You know, where we, on a daily basis, fight for, you know, what we want as a trade, and then you have a member, a representative from Palestine, and what they're going through. It just puts everything into perspective, to be honest with you. So I thought I'd just mention that. It was quite emotional. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're expecting to see Bashir Ahmed, our chairman of COLTA, speak today, unfortunately, due to time constraints, his edited speech was sent in to the Democratic Services a little late, and so it wasn't accepted. So I had to go through my speech, which I sent earlier on time, Monday. So I'll go through that with everyone. I recently spoke at the General Purpose Licensing Committee on 5th of February 2024, highlighting the difficulties and the challenges our trade had endured since the onset of COVID 2020. With the initial plan of the emission standards policy to begin in January 2025, councillors agreed to allow a 1-year delay to the emission standard policy and for it to begin in January 2026. This 1-year delay was offered and approved as a compromise by both the councillors and portfolio holders for planning and healthier communities and zero carbon climate justice. As a trade, we don't think a 1-year compromise was a balanced judgment of the facts available to all of us. The trade has lost 4 productive years since March 2020. Since the initiation of COVID, there was no work for us for 18 months, all the way through to the end of 2021. Then the trade suffered due to the unimaginable rise in the living costs due to the financial crises and very high interest rates. The trade was further impacted with industrial action which crippled the UK and still continues till this date. And lastly, the impact of road closures, which includes LTNs and the ongoing closure of Botley Road, have created a huge disruption to the service we are meant to provide. All of these issues impact taxi drivers and our earnings have reduced drastically. Unfortunately, At the GPLC meeting, it seems like our concerns were largely ignored. We lost 4 productive years and in return a 1-year compromise was given. This is regrettable. I hope that the members had sight of and read the 2 important pieces of information available to them. I had sent all of this information and the links to everyone in this chamber. Firstly, the results of the public consultation, where over 80% of the general public supported the delay of the emission standard policy to January 2028. Secondly, the Hackney Carriage Fleet Affordability Report presents to everyone findings which highlight our plight. To briefly summarise, it clearly states in there that under current circumstances, it is actually more viable to operate in a current TX4 diesel cab than it is in an electric one, because the costs associated with operating in an electric cab are greater. This includes the 200% increase in energy costs to charge the battery on a cab. So basically it costs £17 to charge up a battery on an electric cab, which gives you 50 miles. In a diesel cab, we get 70 miles for that. So the comparison is clear to everyone. The report also highlights that in 2018, a report was published where it suggests that less than 1% of harmful that our trade was responsible for less than 1% of harmful emissions in Oxford city centre. This report was published in 2018. In 2020, the trade was asked to change our Euro 2 and Euro 3 vehicles to Euro 4 vehicles, which we did in 2020. That would have further reduced the emission levels of the taxis. Then in 2024, in current times, we have 34 electric cabs. What do you think that would have done to the 1% figure? It would have even fallen further down. We are not the highest polluters in Oxford. We are an insignificant number of road users which contribute a minuscule of emissions which hardly contribute to the environment. The report seems to have been ignored. To us, a fair compromise would have been an extra 2 years delay from 2025. We were hoping that the members at the GPLC would understand our concerns and appreciate the reports in front of them, including the public consultation. On that basis, we were hoping that the emission standard policy would be delayed to January 2027. This would have been a compromise. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case. I don't need to emphasise the point of our willingness and our cooperation we've had with the authorities that has got us to this stage. 34 of our cabs are electric. This is due to the good relations we've had with the authorities, which included financial grants available to 20 proprietors who made use of the grant and purchased an electric cab. No such grant is currently available to us. Unfortunately, what the GPLC had failed to realise, in our opinion, is that the current circumstances for the trade had changed drastically since 2020, with all the issues explained. So we ask all of you to help the trade and support us drivers of the trade who are your constituents by delaying the emission standard policy by an extra year from 2026 to 2027. As I've explained, we have always been cooperative, but at times a common sense approach needs to be taken without ignoring the facts in front of you. Delaying the emission standard policy to 2027 will certainly give drivers who are faced with this daunting investment a bit more breathing space. Drivers who can then plan their investment accordingly with the prospect of 2027 in their mind. Currently, we are all paying very high prices in everything, whether it's fuel, food and bills, including mortgages. The expanded ZEZ is planned for some time in 2026, probably the middle of 2026. To ask for the emission standard policy to be delayed till 2027 is not a big ask. Big ask whatsoever in light of this development. This will give some proprietors a little bit more time to invest than others. Some proprietors will have their licence renewals in early January 2027. So we shouldn't consider delaying the 2027 a huge task or a burden. As I've said, it will certainly give the extra breathing space to all of us that have yet to change to electric cabs. Thank you very much to everyone for listening.
Thank you very much for your address. Please stay in the chamber for a response from Councillor Mundy, Chair of the General Purposes Licensing Committee.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Mr Bashir and Mr Khan for coming today, and for your services to the licensed taxi drivers of Oxford. And thank you, Mr Khan, for your address. And as you know, we are debating the Licensed Vehicle Emission Standards Amendment later this evening, and your comments will be taken into consideration by the Council. Thank you. Thank you.
We now come to item 6, the recommendation from Cabinet on the appropriation of the land of the railway lane. Please note that Appendix 1 is exempt, and if members wish to discuss the contents of this appendix, then Council will need to enter a closed session. Can I ask Councillor Linda Smith, Cabinet Member for Housing, to present the report and move the recommendations?
Thank you. I'll be brief because I hope this is uncontroversial and mainly just a technicality. This is about moving a parcel of land which is already owned by the Council and held in our general fund into the housing revenue account so that it can be brought forward for development for residential use as part of the scheme on Railway Lane in Livermore, which already has planning permission for 19 new homes. Really pleased to say it's going to be 100% affordable, a mixture of homes for social rent and shared ownership. They're part of our ambitious plans to build more affordable homes in this city over the next 4 years. So, I move the report, and I'd appreciate the support of full council this evening. Thank you.
Can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Brown?
Yeah. Formally seconding, sorry. There seems to be
Thank you.
non-working mic here.
Are there any other speakers for this item? Councillor Jaffrey Marbini.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question, clearly we do need more housing and more affordable housing and actual social housing in Oxford. But my question is, how do we strengthen the contracts with our housing associations? I have had so many complaints in recent months about the state of the flats and of the accommodation that is being managed by all the different housing associations, including Peabody, that we have a contract with. So the range of issues: damp, overflow pipes, poor maintenance of gardens, unaffordable heating, excess cold, sanitation, drainage, electrical hazards. It's continuous, and there seems to be a real tendency, people feel that housing associations are keen to get people into the flats, but once they're there, they don't really care. They're quite far away. It's very difficult to get hold of them, and it's really, really difficult for people's lives. And it really actually is another job where people are having to, sit at home, wait for the contractor to come in, constantly send emails and phone calls, and it really isn't good enough. And I wondered how we can strengthen that, because that is really, really needed.
Councillor Jabber, Nala Hartley.
Yeah, I also like to add to the to this item on the survey that was conducted in Oxford. Out of the 961 people that responded as council tenants to say they were happy with the services that they are getting. The current, based on the 2021 consensus, there are 7,414 council homes in Oxford. And currently, a lot of them, as Hosne just explained, they are also suffering from a lot of disrepairs. The people were reported to be satisfied with their tenancies. The disillusions from tenants has led to a culture of discrimination and division. Many are reporting that they are ignored. I have been to these homes, including homes filled with mold, exacerbated by the cost of living crisis, further fueled by high energy prices, where people turn their heating off so that they can afford to heat their homes and keep moisture out of lending to more condensation on the black mold. In 2024, many working class people in Oxford are wearing outdoor coats indoors. I'm just finishing one sentence, yeah? Many they are wearing their coats, outdoor coats indoors. And my inspiration to become a councillor was born out of this concern, where even my home is filled with mold. So this is a reality of a lot of people living in council homes.
Thank you. I would like to address members that if you can keep, when you speak, address it to the report itself and not other items. So, Councillor Shaista Aziz.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to welcome this report.
Councillor Jabrin Al-Ahali, your mic's on. Thank you.
So yeah, I'd like to start by welcoming the report. As Councillor Linda Smith and councillors have said, Oxford has a severe shortage of housing, and as councillors, I'm sure I can speak for everyone in this chamber to say that we get huge amounts of casework from people struggling with housing needs and the quality of housing as well. I just wanted to also reiterate the point though about the issue of housing associations as well. All of this does come under the umbrella of housing. So while I do welcome this report, I think that we also as a council need to focus on how we can assist more people in the situations that they're struggling with.
Thank you. If we can keep to the report itself. Thank you. Is there any more speakers, please? I will put the decision to the vote. Please can I request... Oh, Councillor Smith, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. Well, I was just going to say by way of answer, I mean, I take on board the important matters raised, but they are not relating to this report on the agenda. They're completely off topic. I was surprised this evening that I didn't actually have any questions addressed to me from fellow council members as a cabinet member for housing. If I'm lucky enough to be re-elected to this chamber and sat here after May, I'd be very happy. I suggest that councillors submit those questions and they can be aired in this chamber then. Otherwise, I'm very happy to take up those issues after this meeting.
You might not be in the cabinet then either.
That's what I said.
Okay, I'm going to put the decision to the vote. Please can I request that members keep their hands raised until I indicate otherwise. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. We now come to the recommendations from the General Purposes Licensing Committee regarding licensed vehicles emission standards. Can Councillor Ed Mundy, Chair of the General Purposes Licensing Committee, move the report and the committee's recommendations?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to make a declaration at the beginning of this, please, Lord Mayor.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I'm a member of the Council's General Purposes Licensing Committee, and I was present at the meeting of the 5th of February when the report referred to here at item 7 was considered. I can confirm that, though I did vote on this item at that meeting, I'm aware that there is new information before the Council today, and I am therefore approaching this item with an open mind as to the outcome. I'll leave that open for people to respond to that. Okay, well, maybe it's just me. I think the rest of the committee would support that. Yes, thank you, yeah.
Is the rest of the committee happy with that? Yes. Okay, thank you. Can I now request a seconder, Councillor Mary Clarkson?
Yes, I will second that as Vice Chair of the committee.
Are there any other speakers for this item? Councillor Ajaz Rahman?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to propose to agree the introduction of the new emission standards for the Hackney carriages licensed by the authority by 2 years instead of 1, as recommended by the General Purposes Licence Committee. The reasons for that generally speaking is the standards and the times were set in 2019. I know we had speakers earlier on and they laid out that, so I'm a bit cautious of just repeating that, but nobody could have predicted COVID. When they agreed, when this was agreed 6 years ago, or to be implemented in 6 years' time, nobody could imagine that COVID would have happened. They're at the hard end of everybody that suffered from COVID, so they need to be shown a little bit more leniency compared to everybody else, if that's the case. and really they haven't been. Every other profession, every other industry I can think of has had some leeway. A year is not enough for these guys with the amount of money that they've been asked to invest in, 80,000 when they've lost over 2 years of their money. I see that Emma is saying that I maybe should stop now and speak later, is that right, Emma?
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for the amendment and then invite Councillor Amanteef?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to support this amendment that Councillor Rahman has put forward to delay the standard to 2 years rather than 1 year as outlined in the report. I think we heard an impassioned plea from Mr Khan, who's representing the trade, and for the reasons why. We've heard from the Chair and the Vice Chair and the rest of the committee that new information has come to light since this was heard at the committee. There are a few other points I'd like to raise. One is that obviously this has a significant cost implication. You know, an electric taxi, you're looking at now, the prices have risen significantly, and you're looking at a cost of about £80,000 to bring in an electric taxi, and that's not an insignificant amount during a cost of living crisis. And also we should understand and appreciate that most of the taxi drivers in the city are of a working class background. These are small independent businesses, and actually trying to take on a cost of that magnitude is quite significant, and I think it's quite unfair, if I'm honest. The second thing is we should understand that the taxi trade is an important element of this city and also the county council's transport strategy, and it's in all our interest to make sure that they are sustainable and that we maintain a strong presence in the taxi trade. I'd also like to say that the taxi drivers in our city are professional drivers. There's a significant level of regulation that they go through. You know, I've been involved in some casework for my constituents who are taxi drivers, and really they're treated with some degree of robustness, if I may say so, by our council officers, and they stand up to the test every time, and I think we should appreciate that. The final thing I'd like to make the comment and address is the elephant in the room, which is that actually the overwhelming majority of taxi drivers in this city come from a Southeast Asian background, and I think we need to be cautious when we're introducing a policy that we're not seen to unfairly discriminate. I'm not saying that we are, but that the perception of such an introduction on a largely working class community in Oxford will be quite significant. So I'd like to support Councillor Rahman's amendment and hope that members may give way to Mr Khan's impassioned plea from earlier and support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any more speakers? I would now like to invite Councillor Ejaz Rahman to sum up.
Thank you. So I just want to remind everybody, colleagues here, the policy framework is air quality action plan, low emissions, and the sustainability. Like Mr Khan said earlier on, probably the Hackney carriages emission rate is 0.5% of what's in the city centre, and it's reducing all the time. We have now 34 electric Hackney carriages in the city centre of Oxford. Bearing in mind that we have over 800 that we have no regulation over, that come from across other districts and other towns that we cannot control. So I would say over incrementally we will see more taxi cabs becoming electric anyway. This is not to say that we have 34 today and we're going to wait till 27, or they will be waiting till January 2027 to have another 70 cabs all electrified at that point. All this is allowing is some of the people that are involved in the taxi trade a little bit of an extra leeway, a little bit of extra care from us, showing that we actually care and we respond to different things. We responded greatly with the COVID pandemic. Everybody worked here. This is just a going forward consequence of that, you know, because it's like the children of that are 13 or 14, maybe they get left behind, and the people that had the exam, the kids that had the exams at 16 and 18 at the time, they were front and centre of our focus. So don't leave the taxi trade behind on this one. I'm concerned that, you know, we see the electric cab, this is more about what we see on the road as opposed to what the taxi trade actually provides for us. So I would say that if we can give them a bit of a more leeway, I would have actually asked for 3 years. However, they've made a compromise with the officers, with the council for 2, so I've gone along with what they've compromised, otherwise I would have actually said 3. Like I said, I'll just repeat myself on this, it just gives the last few taxi, Hackney carriage business owners a bit of time, a bit of extra flexibility. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I hope that you can support this amendment and show the working class South Asian taxi driver that you care and you can support them on this one. And I'd be really grateful for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Louise Upton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think this is a tricky one, isn't it? As councillors, we have to balance...
Oh, I'm so sorry. You've missed your opportunity, I've been told by the Chief. So I'm going to take a vote on the proposed amendment. Please can I request that members keep their hands raised until I indicate otherwise. Those in favour of the proposed amendment, yes. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, those against? Any abstentions? 1, 2. Thank you, the amendment has fallen. Councillor Mundy, would you like to summarise?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I will only briefly summarise because I really appreciate the contributions there from Councillors Rahman and Latif. And I've spoken to Mr. Khan and Mr. Bashir myself before as well, and it's very clear that there has been an enormous impact on our licensed taxi trade. But it's I think it's not for us as the council to say, oh well, that means we have to change everything. We have to support the trade rather than just change a policy that has actually been brought in by council in 2019. It had cross-party support at the time. Everybody in this room now, having Sarge Malik not being here, we've all been elected under a mandate that proposes a zero-carbon city. So I think we all should really acknowledge the fact that this is very much within the democratic accountability of what we were elected under. And of course it's supported by relevant cabinet members as well. It received extensive debate at the General Purposes Licensing Committee, where we had differing views, and there was a very clear mandate from that committee as well. And obviously we took account of all of the information actually. I mean, there is obviously a legal letter, which is the new information here today, but we did of course take account of the information in the report that was with us that day. And so I am proposing that we support the will of the General Purposes Licensing Committee and vote in favour of the 1-year extension. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's any other speakers for this item, we've only got 3-4 minutes before break. So could everyone who wants to speak raise their hand now and I will make a note. Councillor Ijaz Rahman, I got first. Councillor Ahmed Latif second. Councillor Altaf Khan. Yeah. Councillor Louise Upton. Yeah, because of Ramadan and contemplation, we're going to now try and take a break. And that's why you can see my speech is even slowing down. So thank you very much, and see you after the break. Thank very much. Please take a seat. Okay, so once there are no more speakers, we're going to move to the vote. So first of all to speak is Councillor Ejaz Rahman.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I think we've had all the discussion on it. What I would say is that in light of the new information, that we should consider the licensing subcommittee look at this again and reevaluate. So I would ask everyone to vote against it so it can go back to the licensing committee and they can take all the stuff that's been missed or that's come to light now and they can make a decision again. I think Chair said something similar or suggested they didn't have that information. So it would only be fair if they had all that information to reconsider everything. Thank you.
Councillor Aman Latif, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to raise a few specific issues. So one is that there are some requirements on the taxi trade, but there are also equally some responsibilities that we as a City Council have in order to facilitate a change. Councillor Mundy, the chair for the licensing committee, suggested that we're all elected on a mandate of getting to zero emissions. However, when the proposal was made to the trade back in some 5 years ago, there was a suggestion that there would be charging points across the city, there would be taxi ranks that haven't yet materialised. So it would seem further unfair that there are extra requirements being put on the trade when we as a city council haven't fully fulfilled our side of the bargain. The other point I'd like to return to is that I was disappointed that this report was not accompanied with an equality impact assessment. As I said in my speech regarding the amendment, it is undoubtedly the case that a large proportion of taxi drivers in this country, in this city, come from a southeast Pakistani background, and it's likely that this policy is going to disproportionately impact that community. So I am disappointed that there wasn't an equality impact assessment. I would support Councillor Rahman's suggestion that we don't agree this at this stage, but that we send it back to the licensing committee. The final thing I would just say is we heard from Mr. Khan in his public address that there are now 34 taxis that have been electrified, to use that term, but that was because actually there were some grants that were put in place and those grants have disappeared. So as a council I would encourage us to try and facilitate that move, regardless of the time frame that we put on it, in order to have further grants to support the trade in reaching full electrification. But I'd really implore everyone here, I know that people may have come in to the meeting expecting to vote for this item, along party lines maybe, but I'd really encourage you to support that it goes, vote against this, not to accept this policy as it is, but to go back to the licensing committee to give it a full chance to be heard again. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the monitoring officer to clarify in response to Councillor Rahman's question, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to clarify, there is no ability to move a motion to refer it back to the General Purpose Licensing Committee because it's not a motion that can be moved without notice.
So just point of order, but we could achieve that by voting against the policy.
If the, so obviously an amendment has been voted down, if the recommendation as it stands was voted down, it would then need a further proposal from the floor. I can't predetermine what that may or may not be, but at the moment the recommendation before Council is as per the report.
No, sorry, just point of order, monitoring officer. If it was voted down, it would then, we may end up in a situation where there isn't a resolution that's passed this evening, and then it would need to work its way through the council machinery once again. That was the point I was trying to make.
No, council couldn't leave the report unresolved. We would need some sort of further recommendation if the recommendation that's within the report is voted down. We couldn't just leave it unresolved by council. There would need to be a further proposal which is seconded, which is then debated, which is then voted against, until such time as we've got to the point that we can deal with the item on the agenda. It can't just be left undealt with.
Point of order, I thought you said that we couldn't have a motion, we couldn't have a...
Can we, excuse me, we've got another point of order.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm raising point of order. I thought you'd said that there was not the opportunity to raise a further proposal as it wasn't hadn't been put forward before the council in advance.
So we have at the moment a proposal before council which has been proposed and seconded. That must be dealt with before anything else can come forward. At that point, if it's defeated, it would then be for the Chamber to propose how it deals with the report recommendation. What you can't do is propose an amendment or propose during the consideration of the current proposed and seconded recommendation to do something different, because it's not an admissible motion without notice.
Yeah, point of order, just to clarify the suggestion.
Carry on. Are you just going to keep carrying on? Well, I'm going to have to say sorry. I'm going to have Councillor Alex Hollingsworth as a point of order now.
This may be helpful, it may not. As I understand it, the committee's report is to change the current policy. So if the committee's report is not adopted, then the policy will not change. So there isn't a lacuna, there is an existing policy which will remain in place, and that is the one that's set out in paragraph 3. So the recommendation is to defer the deadline for a year. If the report falls, then it won't be deferred by a year. It will stay as it is, I believe. Is that correct?
I'm going to consider that and minute it, and I'm going to, yes, in the meantime, I'm going to go to Councillor Altaf Khan, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't think this is a party political matter and we should be voting on political party. It is a licensing committee which works in different way, like the planning committee works, and there is a recommendation and there was an amendment, and last couple of hours before coming to the council we were fully aware of this amendment, and some of my party colleagues thought that yes, it's worth giving that consideration, but some other across the chamber people did not give that consideration. So what I'm going to say is that we, in our speech, which is obviously minuted, informative, must be put here that if the target for 2026 is not met, and for both sides, we're talking about the taxis, people buying the electric vehicle, and the other side is the council having this infrastructure which is being promised and is not in place. So in 2026, after this election, there will be a new licensing committee, new membership, new chair. So informative is that they monitor this situation. If the situation is not improved and the target is not met, then this got to be debated again. On the quality impact assessment, yes, I have studied law and I've studied this equality impact very in detail. We always tend to say, but I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree with the previous speaker, where a large community of certain area of Southeast Asian or the Muslim or whatever religion, race, color are they, and if the policy is hitting them, that the driver behind is the looking, this is equal to everybody. So regardless of the color, race or religion. So every report, if you look at, the officer do put it, equality impact assessment. So I think is trying to make this a political argument trying to take on equality impact assessment. What is the basic issue here is that the council and the taxi drivers wanted to have the electric vehicles, and there was a deadline which is missed, and there's 1 year by the general purpose licenses extending, and there is not going to be end of a world here. If that target is not met from the both side, the council and the general purpose licensing committee and the Colta association can try to discuss again. They can look into this again, into this new coming year after the election. So I would only say that this is informative, and I'm sure people across this chamber are not anti or against the trade or certain people. Everybody wants to support and everybody wants to achieve what is in the council policy and what is feasible physically, what we can achieve or what we can't achieve. There are a number of things council might be not able to achieve, the number of charging points and the new ranks and things the Colta Association is mentioning. So let's try to, please don't make this party politics, don't try to make it this too much muddled up, and have this informative and be open to reconsider if that needed in coming year after this election. Obviously, the new membership of general purpose licensing committees, they have, I'm sure they have a right to call this item if they wanted to discuss and look at the number, how things are going, how many new vehicles are electric, whether they are on targets or not. So these things can be looked at, so don't please try to make it too complicated.
Thank you very much. Can I please request Councillor Louise Upton?
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I'd like to formally put forward an amendment to refer somewhere else. The Constitution states 11.19 motions without notice. There is no need to give notice of motions to refer something somewhere else, and I'd like to formally put that to the Chamber now. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll carry on with the questions and we'll come back to that. No problem. Councillor Louise Upton, please go ahead.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, very quickly. So Mr Khan did speak very eloquently today, he spoke very eloquently at the licensing committee, but as councillors, we have got to balance the needs of the very real needs of the taxi trade against the health needs of our residents and the route map to net zero carbon that we have committed to. So I just wanted to stress that this is a compromise solution that we came to. We could have just left it stuck with the original timetable, but we went with a 1 year extension, and I think that that is about right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shazda Aziz.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like some clarity on what happened with the equality impact assessment on this report, please. So I'd like some clarity on that. But just to say, this council's gone to great lengths to assist people with small businesses and independently employed people during COVID. There's a COVID recovery programme that this council was part of. So I don't think this compromise, which is what the taxi trade is asking for, is an additional year. So really, they're only asking for another 12 months. And I think that the 12 months should be granted for them to be able to ensure that they can protect their livelihoods and ensure that their taxis are compliant with the policy that this council wants to have in place, which I do agree with. However, what's the problem with giving a group of working class people 12 months? We've already heard that this disproportionately impacts people from a particular community who have been very hard hit by COVID, not just in terms of their livelihoods, but also disproportionately they've died from this particular community as well. Not only in Oxford, including a former councillor, which we all honoured his memory, but who was a taxi driver as well, but many others. So for me, this is a no-brainer. This is a 12-month extension, and it builds goodwill to work with taxi drivers to ensure that from here onwards that they can actually ensure their taxis are compliant and they can work to ensure that they are more aligned with green policies, which is what they want as well. Thank you.
Is there any other more speakers? Any more for any more? Okay, I will ask the monitoring officer to clarify the issues raised in the points of order, but her determination will be final. We won't have further debate on the matter. So are you okay to take that on, Emma?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to clarify, yes, 11.19 does include a motion without notice to refer elsewhere. However, paragraph 1120J makes it clear what motions without notice can be moved during debate, and to refer elsewhere is not one of them. Therefore, as such, whilst we're debating a recommendation, it's not possible for that to be proposed. It's only when a recommendation hasn't been proposed and seconded and is in the process of being debated on. In relation to Councillor Hollingworth's suggestion, council officers can't assume what the will of council is, so if council decided tonight to vote against the recommendation, we can't infer that it therefore wanted to keep the policy as it is. As such, if that were to happen, council would then need to come forward with a recommendation and proposal, so it has a clear recordable decision as to what it intended in respect to the policy. We couldn't leave it in a lacuna. It's similar to, for example, a planning application. If it was recommended for approval but you voted against it, it doesn't naturally mean that you've refused it, and you'd have to look at how you dealt with the application thereafter. It's the same principles for debating the item at council.
Councillor Edward Mundy, would you like to summarise?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for the contributions. It's clearly a really, really important issue to everybody in the city, our visitors.
Order.
Okay. So just to sort of come back on a couple of points there. So I don't want anybody to mistake that there has been heaps of new information coming out in the report and in the supplement for this meeting that we didn't see in the General Purposes Licensing Committee. What the letter from the solicitors acting on behalf of Coulter that's been circulated in the report, what that points out is something that I certainly hadn't seen myself before in the Licensing Committee, was some case law around the onerousness of policies that are pursued, and whether those impacts are disproportionate in relation to the aims pursued. Now, I mean, that may seem like enormous information, but it's, it's certainly very clear that the aims of this policy are actually extremely significant. And another thing that is pointed out in that letter is about the use of private vehicles. Now, we can say as much as we like till we're blue in the face that people need to stop driving petrol and diesel vehicles and stop driving into the city, but that's not something we actually have control over as a city council. We do have control over the licensing of our Hackney carriages. Yeah? Okay, and we do have control over the use of the vehicles that offer the services of the City Council. Those are things where we need to make sure we are meeting the standards that we expect to see from other people, and the standards that we can see are going to be improved.
Order. No, carry on, please. Sorry, interference. Again, I don't know where it's coming from. Oh, is it mine? No, I think it's yours.
Okay. All I want to say is, look, the things we're responsible for, we need to make sure that we're making those decisions in the best interest of the city, and obviously including taxi drivers. I completely understand that. But there's definitely no point in making those correlations with the behaviour of drivers, for example, in the city, of which we have no control over. So we are there to support our taxi drivers. We're absolutely there to see the challenges that they're facing, to ensure that these electric vehicles, which are very expensive, they're expensive to get the warranties on. We heard so much detail at that General Purposes Licensing Committee. So please, ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake of that. Thanks for your thanks for talking while I'm talking. That's really polite of you. Thanks. All I'm saying, guys, is that this is a hugely significant policy when it comes to our zero carbon ambitions. That's not a party political statement. It's just a fact. It's something we are responsible for as a council, and we are here to support our taxi trade. I'm getting more barracking. We're here to support our taxi trade. We're here to ensure that those vehicles can be maintained and serviced at ODS facilities. That's a very important point as well, something that's brought up in the original report. We're not going to ignore these problems, okay? So thank you very much for your contributions. I think they've been really important. I'm really grateful to Coulter as well. But I do recommend that we follow the recommendation, which is a 1-year extension, and thank you for the debate, guys. Cheers.
order, I can hear you saying.
Yes.
Councillor Hallingsworth.
I just want to be clear what the implications of the vote are. The vote in favour I am clear on, which is that we take the existing policy of the 1st of January 2025 and extend it by a year. That's the proposal, isn't it? What I'm not clear is the impact of voting no, because I think I just heard the monitoring officer say it would remove our entire policy. So it wouldn't remove the extension, but would remove the deadline that we currently have. So what would happen if there is a vote no to that deadline of 1st of January 2025? Thank you. Sorry, I won't answer.
Thank you.
The technical, this is the difficulty with voting on motion. So that what you are voting against is the recommendation. So you're not voting in favour of something else, you're voting against the recommendation to amend. As such, let's just say the recommendation is to extend for a further year, but let's just say you voted against it as a body because you wanted to extend it for another 2 or 3 or 4, then we can't assume therefore that you didn't want to amend it at all, so that's why it goes back to council for another proposal and seconder. I'm not saying the policy fails in its entirety, but the fact of the matter is in terms of conducting business, we'd need a conclusion from council to this item.
Is everybody clear or not? No, I'm not clear either. Can you repeat it?
So, what you are voting on when you put this to the vote is, do you want to do this? Yes or no? If you vote against it, you're just voting against doing it. But what council hasn't said is what they want to do in the alternative. And we can't assume as officers what that is. Therefore, council needs to take a decision. And if that is that it doesn't want to amend the policy, it ought to expressly state that in its decision making so that officers know what the decision and the will of council is. So there's no room for inference, because obviously if this is a council decision and officers therefore can't infer what council wants to do, that we don't have that authority to do it. Therefore, there needs to be a positive vote for some sort of outcome on an item.
Thank you. I will put the decision to the vote. Councillor Freeman.
It's just to clarify, really. So, if we voted no to the paper, would it not? Was the suggestion not for it to go back to the committee for the committee to make another? Because so if we voted if we voted no to the paper, what would then happen?
Councillor Emma, please.
If council vote no, then it's up to council to propose and second another recommendation. I can't predetermine what that could be. There's a range of options, but another recommendation, proposal and seconder would need to come forward.
Point of order, that could include a referral back to the General Licensing Committee?
Yes, it could, because it wouldn't be during the debate.
And we are going to the vote now. Ready? Okay. I will put the decision to the vote. Please can I request that members keep their hands raised until I indicate otherwise. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you, the recommendation has been approved. I propose we change the order of business to go to item 11, the public addresses and speakers, then return to item 8, pay policy statement. Is that seconded? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Susan Brown. Members, this has been agreed. We now come to the next recommendation. Can Councillor David, can you bring in the first speaker? address is from Zohara Plummer. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your address.
Thank you. This motion mixes up three very different traffic interventions: the LTNs, the filters and the workplace parking levy. They cover different areas with different aims at totally different stages of implementation. The proposers are suggesting ripping out the LTNs and casually asking to get rid of the traffic filters at the same time. They say they're interested in evidence, so let's look at some evidence. If the county did this, would it relieve congestion? No, because the LTNs haven't suddenly brought about congestion to a city that was wonderfully free-flowing before. In 2011, it was one of the worst cities for traffic, according to TomTom. In 2013, the Oxford Mayor reported traffic jams were worse than ever. It was identified as a top economic challenge in 2016. Also, no, because ultimately it's too many cars that cause congestion. Study after study says that the easier you make it to drive, the more people drive. It's common sense. You get people out of the car by making it more inconvenient to drive and making the alternatives, such as buses, cycling and walking, easier, safer and nicer at the same time. That's it. It's not magic. The traffic filters and the LTNs do exactly those things. And also, no, because we have 100,000 houses being built in our county, and with 1.42 cars per household, we'll have 142,000 more cars on our roads. The population of the county grew 11% in the last decade, and it's predicted to grow 15% in the next. If you rip out the LTNs and dump the filters, all these people will have absolutely zero incentive not to drive. We will all be sitting in gridlock, complaining about other people driving. The LTNs have manifestly succeeded in their primary goal of making walking and cycling safer and more accessible. They've halved the number of collisions, and this makes people feel safer. At Larkrise Primary, a school with 20% pupil premium children, 50% on the SEN register, the LTNs and the school streets have enabled 90 children, a fifth of the pupils, to switch from being driven to walking, cycling or scooting. That is 360 times a day fewer cars are driven into the school and out again every day. This motion talks about businesses on the Cowley Road, so let's examine the evidence there. We tracked the opening and closing of every business from 2010 to the present day, from the Cape of Good Hope to Divinity Road. It's 168 premises. Between 15 and 16 businesses open and close along the stretch every year. These figures have remained the same since the LTNs went in, with actually a slight dip in closures in 2022. The Cowley Road is a vibrant and brilliant place to do business because 40,000 people live within walking distance of it, and that's something that's nicer now to do because of the LTNs. Let's look at the evidence around air pollution. The article, which Councillor Raymond and Aziz themselves clearly states that air pollution in St Clements and the Plain, which is the hotspot in the city, was lower in 2022 after the LTNs than it was in the same location in 2019 before the LTNs. If you're going to reference evidence, check it supports your argument. But it is telling what the proposers do not mention when there is extremely strong evidence. The Royal College of Surgeons recently announced that 20 minutes of light exercise daily, such as walking or cycling a short journey, cuts the risk of dementia by 30%, type 2 diabetes by 40%, breast cancer by 25%, depression by 30%, heart disease by 40%, and osteoporosis by 50%. Some people might look at that and go, my gosh, we should make it easier for people, as easy as possible for people to make better choices for themselves. Despite a multi-billion-dollar car industry wanting cars to be king, let's make it easier and safer for people to be active in their everyday lives and make it harder to be sedentary. But no, Councillors Raymond and Aziz would like to bake in sedentary habits into the structures of our streets and make it harder for people to protect their own health. Let's also look at what might happen if the county were to follow the suggestion and just dump the traffic filters. The traffic filters speed up buses. This is the overwhelming reason that they were chosen above all the other measures. This is what would happen if the filters were dumped. 2 brand new bus routes wouldn't happen. These are outer loops and they go around the city so you don't have to change in the centre. Both of them will serve the hospital. Maybe the proposers would like those to be cancelled. The planned increased frequency of the 3A and the 5A serving Littlemore is going to increase because of the traffic filters. Would they like that to be cancelled? The planned increased frequency of buses serving Wallingford and Didcot and Banbury, would they like that to be cancelled? The planned increased frequency of the park and ride services, would they like that to be cancelled? And 159 electric buses to be cancelled. Would they prefer big petrol buses pumping out toxic fumes on the arterial roads of Oxford, which they claim to care so much about? All of those improvements are happening as a direct result of the traffic filters because buses are going to go faster, which frees up drivers and vehicles along the route. This was never a motion about solutions or evidence, was it? It's about rehashing a topic which this council doesn't have any authority over and about getting headlines in the Oxford Mail before the election period starts. I urge you to oppose this motion today.
Thank you for your address. Please stay in the chamber for a response from Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much for your address, Zahura, and thank you in particular for highlighting, as I have needed to do, it feels like repeatedly and endlessly, the fact that we are not the Transport Authority. It is in fact the County Council, not the City Council, which has responsibility for transport in Oxford and across Oxfordshire. I am sure we will have an interesting debate shortly, or maybe not so shortly. I thought we might be a bit nearer it by now, but we're not. But I did want to highlight the fact that LTNs were actually very specifically a county council project, introduced under the previous Conservative administration initially, but with which the city didn't actually have direct involvement. The traffic filters, however, have been a joint project and are really important in tackling Oxford's awful congestion and improving the public transport options to people in the city, as you highlighted. So thank you very much.
Our next address is from Dr. Sheikh Ramzi. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your address.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I greet you with the Islamic greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May peace and blessing of Almighty God be upon you all. In the light of our city, rich history and commitment to inclusivity, I would like to submit a proposal for the formal recognition of the State of Palestine by the Oxford City Council. This proposal reflects our shared value of justice, equality, and the pursuit of peace, aligning with the United Kingdom government's endorsement of a two-state solution for the Israel and Palestine conflict. The enduring conflict between Israel and Palestine has resulted in a profound suffering and a loss of both sides of the conflict. It is widely acknowledged that a comprehensive resolution is essential to ensure the security and right of all parties involved. Central to this resolution is the establishment of the viable and independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. The Oxford City I'm so sorry, I thought my apologies. I think I got yes. My apologies. Is there two things we have together, but one is yes, the other version which we have. I thought this version is from the. My apologies. My apologies. God bless you. God bless you. We are all brothers and sisters. I start again? Yes. Okay. God bless you all. In the light of our city's rich history and the commitment to the inclusivity, I would like to request that the Oxford City Council consider giving its support to a two-state solution to the end of conflict in Gaza. This proposal reflects our shared value and justice, equality, and the pursuit of peace, aligning with the government, with the United Kingdom government's endorsement of the two-state solution for the Israel-Palestine conflict. The enduring conflict between Israel and Palestine has resulted in profound suffering and loss for both sides of the conflict. It is widely acknowledged that the comprehensive resolution is essential to ensure the security and right of all parties involved. Central to this resolution is the establishment of the viable and independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. Should Oxford City they should provide support for such a resolution? It presents a significant and symbolic step toward the parties to the conflict, advancing the peace process. It underscores our solidarity with the Palestinian people and affirm the Council believes that a solution should be underpinned by the international law, self-determination and human rights. By confirming the support, the Council will demonstrate support for a just and lasting solution to the conflict. Oxford City Council, as the authority of the city, renowned for its prestige, academic institution and a diverse community, is well established to lead the example, is supporting recognition of the Palestine. As a city that values inclusive and tolerance, Oxford City Council has a responsibility to champion the right of marginalized communities. By endorsing the proposal, the council honor our tradition and standing up for justice and equality. In 2014, Sweden to recognize Palestine as a state in 2014, setting an important precedent for other nations, and by supporting two-state solution, Oxford City Council will be lending its voice to the global momentum behind the recognition of the Palestine. Such a collective action amplifies the voice of the Palestinian people and strengthens call for the constructive dialogue and recognition. In conclusion, I urge the Oxford City Council to consider lending its support to the two-state solution to the conflict, demonstrating Oxford's unwavering commitment to peace and human rights, affirming your value and compassionate and progressive city, and standing in solidarity with those who are striving for dignity and freedom. God bless you. I hope you understand. It was just pleasure. God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Thank you for your address. Please stay in the chamber for a response from Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much for your address, Dr. Ramsey. And although I would say this is mainly really a matter for the United Nations and the UK government rather than Oxford City Council, I think I can speak on behalf of us all in this chamber in saying that councillors would also support a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. So thank you very much for your address today.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Our next address is from Danny Yee. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your address.
Outside my front door is a stretch of on-street parking which can, if everyone parks carefully, just fit 4 small cars. But even one large car reduces its capacity to 3. Those of you who drive may have experienced finding a space in a car parking lot only for there to be wide vehicles on either side, coming right up to the dividing line, making the space impossible to use. And car parks that might once have had 100 spaces may now only have 80 because they have to cater for larger cars. So charging larger cars for parking would be justified simply on fairness grounds. Larger vehicles, however, also create a whole range of community harms. Indeed, pretty much all the harms created by cars are worse with larger and heavier cars. In some places, on-street parking has been shifted onto pavements, making it difficult or impossible to use for people walking or wheeling, because wider cars parked in the carriageway wouldn't leave enough room for bin lorries or fire engines. A child is 8 times more likely to die in a collision with an SUV than with an ordinary car, because they go under the SUV instead of onto the bonnet of the car. And because large vehicles have poor visibility, they're more likely to hit people in the first place, especially when reversing. Larger vehicles also contribute to road danger indirectly, even when parked or stationary, because they block visibility, raising the risk of collisions between other people, walking, wheeling, cycling or driving. Heavier vehicles cause more road damage than lighter ones, both to the carriageway and to pavements. Some analyses suggest that the heaviest SUVs may do 20 times as much damage as a typical car. Particulate air pollution comes largely from tyre wear, road dust resuspension and brake wear. That means that it is not solved by electrification, but also that larger vehicles create more of it. There's no safe level of particulate air pollution. World Health Organization guidelines are now 20% of the UK legal limits. Finally, larger vehicles burn more fuel and emit more carbon dioxide. All the decarbonisation gains achieved by vehicle electrification have been undone by increasing vehicle size. So we need to discourage the ownership and use of larger vehicles, especially in urban areas such as Oxford, with large numbers of people walking and cycling and breathing the air. Increased parking charges would be a small but direct deterrent, but would also, if accompanied by a simple explanatory campaign, help change people's attitudes and car purchasing decisions. This is also a matter of social equity. If you take the zero emission zone as proposed, for example, it is progressive because the poorest residents of Oxford are most likely to depend on walking, cycling and buses. But it is regressive insofar as poorer drivers are less likely to have electric vehicles and more likely to have older vehicles with dirtier engines. In contrast, car weight correlates strongly with car price, so a weight-based component makes something like the ZEZ more progressive, as well as inhibiting those vehicles which contribute most to particulate pollution and road danger. Many other local authorities have emissions-based charging, and a few have size or weight-based charging. Oxford and Oxfordshire should follow them. Please support this motion.
Thank you for your address. Please stay in the chamber for a response from Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Danny. I'm not sure whether or not we'll reach this motion tonight. In all honesty, I think there's quite a lot of business still to get through. But one sensible and easily operationalised option to deliver these measures would potentially be a county-wide review of the permit system so that all permit costs reflect the size and emissions of vehicles, which is something that we could potentially make representations about. I am also aware that Labour Cabinet members Louise Upton and Anna Railton have been looking at ways in which we could do more to tackle some of these issues, and I'm sure they'd be happy to discuss those.
David, can you please bring in the next public speaker? The next public speaker is from Richard Parnham. Is Richard Parnham. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to make your question. Go.
So this question is mainly directed to Anna Railton, Oxford City Cabinet Member for Zero Carbon and Climate Justice. Can the Cabinet Member for Zero Carbon and Climate Justice explain whether or not the Oxford Air Quality Annual Status Report for 2023, i.e. the one coming out in June, will include a detailed analysis of historic recent NO2 pollution levels across the planned Oxford ZEZ expansion zone? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your address. Please stay in the chamber for a response from Councillor Elton.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Thank you for your question, Mr. Parnham, and your recent social media posts implying that there isn't enough air pollution in the centre of town, which is a new and refreshing take. As I know you're already aware, Oxford City Council manages one of the biggest air quality networks operated by any local authority in the UK. For this reason, lots of academics use Oxford for air quality research, most recently the Institute of Applied Health Research at the University of Birmingham. This extensive air quality monitoring network consists of 3 automatic monitoring sites measuring nitrous oxide, particulates and ozone, while there are 133 diffusion tubes measuring nitrous oxide levels across the city of Oxford. The monitoring coverage encompasses all the key areas included in Oxfordshire County Council's proposed ZEZ expansion. As you also know, it is our statutory duty to report to DEFRA all of the air quality data from this network on an annual basis every June, And so in 3 months' time, we'll be publishing our air quality annual status report, which will contain all of the information about the levels that were measured by our network of sensors in 2023, including the most recent trends. You can check current air quality levels and historic data as much as we have on the county-wide air quality website, also created by Oxford City Council, which can be found at oxonair.uk.
The next public speaker is Mr. Dominic Metz. Committee and Member Services received notification this morning that he has withdrawn his question. David, can you kindly bring in the final public speaker? Our final question is by Keddy Beck. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to ask your address.
We are campaigning to save Bertie Park, the only recreation ground in the southern half of the Hicksey Park ward. How many times have you told us Bertie Park has been on local plans for 20 years? There's been extensive consultation. Both are false. Your proposals depart from all previous plans, which all required the park to be moved. You never asked us if we wanted the park destroyed. Bertie Park is not judged surplus to requirements, but your 2040 local plan has simply dropped the requirement to move it. It says the park is suitable for residential housing because there is potential to replace the function of the site partially within the site and partially elsewhere in the local area. It says there should be a playground of some sort within the new development. The multi-use games area could become an alternative type of facility, or maybe you could increase the capacity of the small kickabout area on Fox Crescent. The recreation ground itself isn't mentioned. Your current consultation on local bylaws shows that Bertie will disappear from the map. In compensation, you will improve access to what you now call the Cold Harbour Nature Area. No one is concerned about access. Parents don't allow kids to go there alone because it's scary. There is no natural surveillance, and you've never any idea who or what you will find there. Thames Valley Police have said it's not safe for unaccompanied children. We are not NIMBYs. If you wanted to build housing there, few would object, but we do object to you building on our recreation ground. Government guidance states that recreational space should only be built on if the loss resulting from the proposed development is replaced by equivalent or better provision in terms of quantity and quality in a suitable location. Our research shows that our community is of the overwhelming opinion that this would not be the case. You have no intention of complying with government guidance, yet you insist that new facilities will meet the needs of existing and future users. After you have granted planning permission, you will ask us whether the fence posts should be blue or red, or whether we want swings or roundabouts. When Bertie Park has gone, you'll say there's been extensive consultation and we are meeting the community's needs. We all know that Oxford is a housing catastrophe. 3,000 people on the housing list. Most ordinary working people cannot afford to live here. You say that building on our 1.7-acre park will transform the lives of 31 families. Don't we want somewhere for our children to live? Meanwhile, on the North Oxford development, you have different priorities. The 64-acre site will provide 1 million square feet of labs and workspaces, 4,500 jobs, 3 public parks, but only 480 homes. This will supercharge the housing crisis. Advertised as a model of sustainable living, few working people will afford to live there. If this site was used for housing, you could build 1,237 homes. In this part of Oxford, our part of Oxford, you intend to build an additional 230 homes. UK children are getting less exercise than ever, but you want to destroy the only park we've got. Hinksey Park is over 1 kilometre away. For residents of your new development on Redbridge Meadow, it will be even further. Will you use the 3 parks in North Oxford for social housing too? It is clearly one rule for them and another rule for us. What makes this worse is that you are keeping us in the dark. Last time you gave us notice that Bertie Park would be discussed at Cabinet, we leafleted our area to let everyone know. Many were disappointed when it was dropped from the agenda at the last minute. So now you keep quiet. We've signed up for alerts. Each month we wait for Cabinet and Planning Committee agendas to appear. Appropriation of Bertie Park has been on 3 forward plans. The latest said you'll decide in June. But we know you could cancel again. You're having us on. We are Oxford residents. If you are determined to build on our only community facility, the least that you could do is to keep us informed.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your address. Please stay in the chamber for a response from Councillor Louise Upton.
Thank you very much for coming along today. I don't have a prepared response, I would say. We have heard your concerns a number of times, so we are very, very well aware of them, and you do raise interesting and valid points. I will make sure that you are informed well in advance of the next time anything is coming to a Cabinet or a Planning Committee meeting.
Thank you. That is the end of the public addresses and questions. We're now moving on. We now come to item 8. Can Councillor Nigel Chapman, Cabinet Member for Citizens Focused Services and Council Companies, introduce the report on the Pay Policy Statement 2024 and move the recommendations?
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'll try and be brief just so we can catch up some time. The annual pay policy statement is a legislative requirement. We have this every year to publish and approve it. It looks ahead to 24/5, and I'm glad to say at the heart of this particular version is the details of a very successful negotiation that the Council's had with its employees and trade unions for 24-25 year and 25-6. And I want to say a public thank you to our trade union colleagues for the way that was conducted, and all our staff for the way they have very responsibly taken into account the financial position which the Council faces. It is a testament, I think, to the good relationship we have with both Unite and Unison, who we were able to get to the satisfactory conclusion. The report has details of that particular pay deal. It also has details about work that is going on about pay and grading, which is a separate matter which we brought back to this Council in due course. So I commend it to you, and I hope you'll support it. Thank you.
Can we have a seconder? Councillor Susan Brown. Are there any other speakers for this item? Councillor Chapman, would you like to sum up?
In the light of the fact there's been no reaction, I think I've had my say. Thank you.
I will put the decision to the vote. Please can I request that members keep their hands raised until I indicate otherwise. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations have been approved. We now come to questions to the Cabinet minutes. May I remind members that there is a time limit of 15 minutes for this item. Do members have any questions for the minutes held on the 7th of February 2024? No? Okay. Are there any other speakers for this item? Do members have any questions for the minutes held on the 13th of March 2024? Councillor Chris Merton, and I see Councillor Lucy Pegg.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Concerning the BMW item, so multinational giants like BMW have a really large level of power over the city. If they were to choose to leave, they have the ability to do really significant damage to our economy, to employment and to people's lives. That means that in practice, whilst we're supposed to be judging whether the £800,000 of relief asked for would be necessary or sufficient to change their behaviour, which of course it won't be because it's a very small amount to them, in actual fact what we end up judging is, can we afford, do we dare to upset them? given that that puts politicians in a really untenable position, doesn't that suggest putting decision-making about matters like this at arm's length, for example, in the hands of a neutral expert panel? And will you consider doing things of that form in the future?
Councillor Lucy Pegg.
Yeah, mine is on the same topic. As Chris has mentioned, the £800,000 payment is obviously quite small in comparison to the size of the whole BMW project. It's less than 0.1% of the total project cost. So I think it's difficult to say that it's going to have a real impact on the viability of BMW's project. So does the Cabinet think that the discretionary exceptional circumstances relief policy adequately accounts for the size of the SIL exemption in comparison to the size of the project as a whole?
You got a funny mic there. Okay, Councillor Sajmalik.
Thank you very much. I'm speaking on the same thing. I mean, I think this is quite ironic and shameful, actually. BMW is probably worth over 70 billion, God knows, or 700 billion. Somebody was quoting in the Oxford Mail article the worth, and letting them off £800,000. And on the other hand, I read the other day Oxford City Council trying to take the right away from the active learning college about the parking, which is the cheapest parking in the city. And guess what? The college basically serve our more vulnerable children who have a learning disability and the other issues. I mean, get your priorities right. I think people should be shameful because £800,000 should have gone.
Councillor Malik, can you ask a question?
I am doing, there is a question in there. And it will be a question in the end, don't you worry. But equally, what I don't understand, a rich company like that, why are we letting them off when we're charging every other people on different services? So what was the reason? There's no reason. Mini plant is a profitable plant. They're not going to run away. They're not going to go anywhere. Why this cabinet have decided to let them off on the £800,000? There's a question.
Councillor Louise Upton, would you like to answer all three questions?
Try. Thank you. Well, Councillor Smith, I'm glad you recognise that the damage it would do if BMW left this city.
They won't.
And Councillor Pegg, I'm glad you recognise how difficult it is to say whether this £800,000 would make the difference or not to this project. The reality is that global car companies can choose where they want to put their operations. Now, if you would like to roll the dice and see whether BMW choose to leave Oxford if we don't grant them this 800,000, that's a risk you can take.
Absolutely not.
But it was not a risk that we wanted to take. And I also need to point out that the discretionary relief scheme that we're talking about is a very clearly set out policy that actually any business could apply to us for discretionary relief under. Okay, so they went down this road, we took a lot of legal advice, and their case was sound. Okay, so it's not ideal. It's not ideal that there's lots of things we could do without £800,000, but we were not prepared to take the risk that BMW could choose to relocate elsewhere.
Lord Mayor, point of order. I want to ask a question to the monitoring officer. So I'm a member of a planning committee, another planning committee, and obviously in that planning committee, when the planning application was passed, the SIL amount was in there. So how the law states, so you can go for the planning committee, you can write all the things down, and then does the law allow them then come back and ask for the discretionary and then we can waive this off?
Councillor Monitoring Officer Emma Jackman, would you like to respond?
Yes, it does, and also the determination of the planning application is a planning function, which is a council function, whereas actually determination of the SIL liability is a matter for cabinet under executive powers. So therefore, it isn't something that the planning committee could consider in terms of whether it applied or not. It did rightly need to go to cabinet.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay, that's all now. We now come to the questions on notice from members of council. I will begin with the questions for Councillor Brown, Leader of the Council. Councillor Sanderson, do you have a supplementary question regarding the portraits in the council chamber.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. Sorry for another one, but just because it may focus minds, I just wanted to check the 4-hour limit on council meetings. Does that include the break? Because we've got 55 minutes left for quite a lot of business.
Please hold.
If it's helpful, you're looking at point 11.6.
We're just checking if it references it. Emma Jackman, if you can answer.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Yes, it says meeting shall conclude no more than 4 hours after the published start time. Obviously, that is the start. It's from the start time, so that was 5 p.m. However, that is a standing order that can be suspended by council on the vote.
Rowley.
Is it possible to propose that the meeting be extended for half an hour, given that we have had a break that was half an hour longer than normal?
Emma Jackman, Monitoring Officer.
We can, but respectfully, there's still just under an hour until we reach the 4-hour mark. So I'd suggest we get closer to 9 o'clock and then consider where we are in terms of business.
Okay, I'm pressing on now. We now come to the questions on notice for members of council. I will begin with the questions for Councillor Brown, Leader of the Council. Councillor Sarderson, do you have a supplementary question regarding the portraits in the council chamber?
Yes, I do. My question is that I understand that Elise Benjamin is seen by the Jewish community as the first female Jewish Lord Mayor, but we probably won't get anywhere arguing the finer points of identity and heritage across the council floor. I'm glad to hear you'll be putting together a process for a future refresh, and can you please confirm that you will aim to bring this about in the next civic year?
Yeah, I do think it would be a really good idea not to be challenging people's views of their own heritage across the council chamber. But yes, I am happy to confirm that we would be happy to come up with a formula that we can agree other portraitures. I'm really grateful to Catherine for all the work that she's done, and indeed to Susanna to all the work that she did previously in trying to get greater representation in this city council. But clearly there is more work to be done, and we would like to see some more, and I'm really happy to continue the cross-party working that we've had on this.
Councillor Smoton, do you have a supplementary to your question regarding the scrutiny of the communities team and ODS?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. If I can find the relevant bit. Yes. Will you ensure that scrutiny is engaged specifically at the options stage and not just at final recommendations?
I'm sure that we will be continuing to talk to scrutiny right the way through the process.
Councillor Ross-Smith, do you have a supplementary regarding the fair trade?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor, thank you. Thank you for your reply. I look forward to knowing when the new fair trade champion is appointed. Would you agree with me that we are, as you said, a well-established fair trade city, but unfortunately we have no fair trade shop specifically in the centre, as it closed last year, partly due, I think, to high rents and such. Does she agree with me that it would be beneficial to the city to support a fair trade shop, perhaps in one of the as a pop-up in one of the empty city council-owned rental outlets? Thank you.
I mean, obviously it's open to anyone to approach the City Council with a business proposal. I believe that the fair trade shop that closed was run by the church, and so any increase in rents was not down to us, but indeed to the church. and actually that church, the same church, owns several other properties in Cornmarket, which I would be delighted to see as fair trade shops rather than American candy. So let's hope that happens.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aziz, as you have two questions to the leader on different topics, I will ask you in turn for your supplementary questions. First, do you have a supplementary regarding the divisive rhetoric of a democratic protests?
Yes, I just want to thank you, Councillor Brown, for the response. I look forward to seeing the letter. Thank you.
Councillor Aziz, do you have a supplementary regarding the Mayor of Ramallah video address?
Yes, I would like to thank all the officers involved and Oxford Friends of Ramallah Association for ensuring that we all had a very delicious iftar. I think that was a really nice touch. So I just want to thank everybody involved in making sure that the Ambassador received a warm welcome and that he had the opportunity to come here this evening. Thank you.
Now, questions for Councillor Turner, Cabinet Member for Finance and Asset Management. Councillor Miles, do you have a supplementary regarding fly tipping fines? Councillor Ross Smith, do you have a supplementary regarding the community infrastructure levies?
Thank you. Yes, I do. In fact, thank you for the answer, Councillor Turner. Could you provide a breakdown of the nearly 17 million, and how much of it will be spent during the coming year, and how much will be earmarked for particular infrastructure projects?
Yes, I think the information that Councillor's after will be part of the detail of the budget, but we can certainly drop the Councillor a line with our capital financing. I mean, just maybe to explain, this is not free money or unallocated funds which we can then cheerfully disperse. This is money just like other sources of income that the council has, which we need to spend on our priorities, and specifically we still increasingly need to spend it on the many items of infrastructure in our capital programmes. So, whether it's refurbishing play areas, parks, community centres, all of that sort of thing, we really, really do need it. And of course, if we don't have that money, then we need to borrow, and that's then a sort of pressure in the future. But I know we'll be happy to share what information we've got about the financing of our capital programme. And Nigel Kennedy's nodding as well. Might be one for him rather than me. Don't know off the top of my head.
Now, I shall take the questions for Councillor Choe Makonge, Cabinet Member for Leisure and Parks. Councillor Smoton, do you have a supplementary regarding cycling in parks?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. In particular reference to, it's often mentioned in answers to this sort of question of like, oh, enforcement's very difficult. Do you recognise that enforcement is going to be very difficult of parks bylaws, whatever the rules are, and that's where we're living in a very different society, and therefore the main purpose of the rules that we're setting is to influence the behaviour of the majority of people who are inclined to obey the rules, and not the minority who don't?
Yes, I agree. Enforcement is going to be very difficult. Councillor Smoton.
Councillor Ross Smith, you have two questions.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. Can I ask an answer to the question that I asked? Because that is an answer to a very different question.
Yes, I did agree that enforcement is going to be very, very difficult.
The question was, do you agree that the main point is about the majority of people who are inclined to obey the rules and not the minority who aren't?
Yes.
Councillor Ross Smith, you have two questions regarding Quarry Pavilion and are entitled to two supplementary questions. Do you have a supplementary question to the first response?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor, and to both, so you don't need to ask me
Okay.
if I could. Thank you for your reply. So from this reply, I take it that ODS made a decision but did not consult with the main users of the building. Does the Cabinet Member agree that informing the main hirers by email on a Friday that the new key system was going to go live the following Monday was short-sighted and has resulted in a lot of anguish?
Thanks, Rose, for the question. It depends to the interpretation of consultation. The fact that they were informed, I thought that was adequately, but I'll go further to actually revise if we should change the system in future, for example, to contact them earlier than what we did.
Thank you. I do have another supplementary. So thank you. I had two questions.
She has two.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor, for ruling on that. Yeah, the two questions were put together in the same box. If you look, there's lots of answers to that. Right, thank you very much for the response. I'm pleased that it's going to save some travelling for people who are doing one-off hires for the building. But is the Cabinet member aware that there is a serious safeguarding with the risk with this new key system, in that the building cannot be locked from inside? This means either the door has to remain open for the users if they need to be going out to play the football and come back in again to use the facilities, or when there are primary age children in this, the door has to be barricaded from inside because it can be locked from inside. And this is not only a safeguarding risk for those children, but also is one possibly for the fire safety team, in fact, as well, and should be considered. Barricading children in because you can't lock the door from inside is a safeguarding risk.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. You've brought up a very good suggestion. I would be happy to take this offline. As you can see from the answer, there are two strands to this. We do our own assessment, and we presume, or we know that the Herald as well, they do their safeguarding assessment. So with what you have brought, we can take it offline, and then we can advise the officers, or the officers who advise us. Thank you.
So look into it. So the next questions are for Councillor Louise Upton, Cabinet Member for Planning and Healthier Communities. Councillor Miles, do you have a supplementary regarding Westgate car parking charges? Councillor Smoton, do you have a supplementary question regarding e-scooters on off-road cycleways?
Yes. Do you agree with the general principle that pedal cycles and the Voi e-scooters ought, wherever possible, to be treated alike?
Seems a reasonable principle, yes, but I don't want to prejudge what the outcome of the review of the parks the parks regulations is going to be. Scooters, I think scooters are complicated because private ones are so different from the Voi ones. The Voi ones, where you can have them be speed controlled, like when they go to Cornmarket, they have to drop down to 2 miles an hour. You could have that in the park, whereas private ones are unregulated. So scooters are difficult.
Is it possible if all people, councillors, members, move their phone away from the mic? Councillor Jarvis, do you have a supplementary regarding interim local centres?
No, Mayor.
Councillor Muddyman, you have 8 questions for the Cabinet Member, and I will ask you for your supplementary questions in turn. Firstly, do you have a supplementary regarding Grampont Nature Reserve?
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Muddyman, you have 4 questions regarding felling trees on Grampont Nature Reserve and are entitled to 4 supplementary questions. Do you have a supplementary question regarding the first response?
No, my first one is on number 6. Can I ask that one?
Yeah.
So, I understand the 8.6 million grant funding from the growth deal for the proposed new bridge is conditional on the project being completed by March 2025. Can you tell me what happens if it's not completed? What happens to the money? I can't tell you what happens to the money. I guess we are very, very focused on it being finished in time. I don't know what the situation would be. I presume if it was half built, they couldn't take it back. But that would be a problem for the county, really, as the money is coming from them. Thank you. Sorry, I refer you to my honourable friend. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Gardner said you can give me an answer. Thank you. On number 8, can you tell me on what basis did the council's advisors reach the decision that a licence was unnecessary to fell the trees, bearing in mind that the quantity of trees the council was planning to fell was about 3 times the legal amount allowed? I have no idea where you got that number from. Our arboriculturists assessed them, ODS assessed them, and were clear that we would not need a licence to fell them. So I'm sorry, I just don't recognise that number that you have.
Councillor Moneyman, you have 3 questions regarding Oxford's River Bridge and are entitled to 3 supplementary questions. Do you have a supplementary question regarding the first response?
Yeah, I have 2. So on number 9, given that the council is spending over £10 million of public money on a bridge, which is mainly for the benefit of the university for their plans to develop Oseney Mead, can you tell us what the university is doing for the council in return?
I mean, the council puts in infrastructure for all sorts of reasons, and institutions and residents, and for making movement around the city better. This bridge, yes, it will be useful for Oseney Mead. It will also be useful for people, anyone coming in from the west or from Hinksey, to be able to, to come into the city centre without having to go along the Botley Road. There's no quid pro quo with the university over this.
Thank you. And last one, can you tell me what were the costs of improving the existing Gasworks Bridge, and how do they compare to the 10 million cost of a new bridge?
I don't know what the cost was of repairing it, but we did repair it.
Improving rather than repairing.
Improving it, yeah. So it may have been about £1 million, I'm not sure. But I mean, the point is, it's not an either or with this. We're anticipating having a lot more volume of people walking and cycling from the west coming into the city. We need a second route for them. That's the point of this. It's not an either or.
Councillor Muddyman, do you have any more supplementary questions you'd like to ask?
That's it, thank you.
Councillor Pegg, do you have a supplementary regarding Meadow Lane planning application?
No, I don't.
Next are the questions for Councillor Nigel Chapman, Cabinet Member for Citizen Focus Services. Councillor Miles, do you have a supplementary question regarding data fines for littering? Councillor Smoten, do you have a supplementary question regarding the housing management system?
No, Mama.
Councillor Pegg, do you have a supplementary question regarding Cricket Road trees?
No, I don't.
Moving on to questions for Councillor Mark Ligo, Cabinet Member for Inclusive and Safer Communities. Councillor Aziz, you have 2 questions to the Cabinet Member, and I will ask in turn for your supplementary questions. Do you have a supplementary regarding the Islamophobic hate crime and anti-Semitism?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor. So, Councillor Ligo, like you, I celebrate the good work that's done across our city by faith communities who work together and have a long history of doing so. However, respectfully, my question is not being answered. I'm asking about what the council is going to do in relation to an unprecedented rise in Islamophobic hate crime since October the 7th. The vast majority of cases are impacting Muslim women who look like myself, and the Lord Mayor, specifically women who wear the hijab and other items of clothing that identify us as Muslim. So obviously I appreciate this is not a task just for the council. What I would really like to see is a strategy specifically focusing on Islamophobic hate crime. We are one of the most diverse cities in the country. I think it would go a long way to building trust amongst residents to know that there is a strategy being developed alongside stakeholders, and also I would like to know what is being done specifically around anti-Semitism, which has seen a huge rise as well, and we must make sure that we speak loudly to unite communities and drown out those voices that try to divide us. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor Aziz, do you have...
Sorry, did you want to respond?
Yes, please, Lord.
Sorry, Councillor Ligo, if you can kindly respond.
Thank you very much for the question and the supplementary. I thought some of the questions had been answered. Not been pedantic or anything. As you're aware, there is good partnership working within the committee, but I do understand that more has to be done. I'm going to pick my words very carefully, and I'm going to make sure that I reply within the next 5 working days, because I need to speak to various people within the community and making sure what we do is not raising expectations, but doing the right thing going forward and doing it in a meaningful way.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shaista Aziz, do you have a supplementary regarding making knife crime a public health issue?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor. So sadly, since I submitted this question, there's been another stabbing in Oxford. This is the third stabbing in 3 weeks. One in Barton, one in Littlemore, and now one in East Oxford. So again, I appreciate the response from the police, the latest incident in particular, and I understand that there is a lot of concern across the city in relation to knife crime. I've specifically mentioned Councillor Jabrinala Hartley in my question, so I'm really calling for Councillor Mark Ligo to have a conversation with Councillor Jabrinala Hartley, who has extensive experience on working on the issue of knife crime, particularly with working with young men with lived experience of this as well. And I think it's really important that we really find new voices to listen to and to speak with, especially those young people who are being impacted.
Completely agree, and I'm more than happy to speak to you. What I will say at the moment, I have had several conversations over the last couple of months, and some with the PCC when I've been over in Aylesbury. I have asked specifically in Oxford if we could have a knife crime summit. We have to be careful as well the way we word things and frame things. Oxford is a safe city and will continue to be a safe city. It is really unfortunate with the 3 cases. They are isolated incidents and they were known to each other as well. So I want to say that as much as there are various people who've contacted me who are very anxious and concerned, and I keep reading, the headline news about what's going out on social media, not always having all the facts and everything else as well. Before these 3 incidents, I asked for a knife summit, and I've raised this. I've also raised this with the leader of the council, and Richard Adams, and Bruce Riddell, the superintendent. Again, if we're going to do it, let's make sure it's going to be meaningful, and it has that positive ripple effect, and make sure it has those outcomes, what we want to achieve as well. So again, it's working with teams in our youth ambition. I don't want it to be political. I want it to be led by the lived experience and by the young people of Oxford. So again, I want to make sure that we've got the right people around the table, looking at what it means and what we do as well. So.
Okay, I noticed Councillor Jabrinala Hartley put a hand up, but just to reiterate, these are questions to Cabinet members. No permission for any other member to comment on, but I'm sure Councillor Mark Ligo will be happy to speak to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to...
So we can't speak, sorry. Moving on to questions for Councillor Hunt, Cabinet Member for Culture and Events, who's not here. Councillor Miles, you have 2 questions to the Cabinet Member, and I will ask you in turn for your supplementary questions. Do you have a supplementary regarding museum entry fee for non-residents?
No.
Councillor Miles, do you have a supplementary regarding...
Yes, for the second one I do, the revocation of pavement terraces. What this is about is trying to understand what would constitute a substantive complaint which would allow a review and revocation potentially of a pavement licence outside a cafe due to pavement parking next to that cafe. Notwithstanding that and appreciating that enforcement is a county responsibility, but in the spirit of joint working and coordination partnership, recognising there can be limited resources to enforce that. Thank you.
We will now have a break. Sorry.
You're a right joker, Lord Mayor. Do you want me to try and respond on behalf of Councillor Miles?
Please do.
I was actually just going to say it might be more helpful to take this offline and actually it sounds to me like you've got somewhere in mind, which I appreciate you not mentioning in council, but I think it would probably be helpful to have a discussion around the specifics and then it might be easier for us to find a way of helping.
Okay, we now come to item 12A, the Scrutiny Committee Update Report. Can Councillor Lucy Pegg, Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, introduce the report?
Yes, I can also drop my phone. I'm going to keep this super brief, even more so than usual. The report covers January to the end of February, during which time the Scrutiny Committee met twice, and there were also one meeting of the Finance Panel and one meeting of the Climate Environment Panel. Over those 4 meetings, we managed to make 57 recommendations, which feels like quite a lot. So thank you to committee members for being so scrupulous in your scrutiny, and to cabinet members for responding. I won't go into any more detail, but as this is my last report as Scrutiny Panel Chair, I'll just say thank you to everyone who was on Scrutiny Committee this year for your commitment to cross-party scrutiny. Thanks to everyone who chairs and sits on the other panels, and to Alice Courtney for her amazing work as Scrutiny Officer, without whom most of Scrutiny would probably be a very disorganised mess. So thanks.
Do any members wish to speak on this item? Do any other members wish to speak on this item? Members, can we note the report? Thank you. The report has been noted. We now move on to item 13, motions on notice. Please note that this item has a time limit of 60 minutes. I suggest therefore that we agree now to extend meeting by up to 90 minutes. I did say up to. One hour.
If I could clarify, the item on motions could take, we're down for 60 minutes on that, so we're proposing that we extend the meeting, not by an additional 60 minutes, but for an additional half an hour, just in case there's anything else that we need to do. So this is really about allowing the time for the motions, but if there is any business at the end of that, we don't expect to use the whole 90 minutes, but just to do that so that we don't have to come back to this.
Or you come back next week.
Okay.
We'll come back next year.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Saad Malik, are you seconding that?
I'm seconding half an hour, yeah.
Okay.
So that will take you 1 hour for whole motions, basically. That's why.
That's right.
Yeah.
Up to an hour. I got a thumbs up from Councillor Saad Malik. Hands up.
Could somebody say the absolute end time that they're thinking about? Are you saying extend until 9:30 or until
9:30 at least.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies, what we're saying is it's 8:30. The motions will take us till 9:30. There may be 1 or 2 things we have to do after that, which won't take us very long. We're just trying to set. So can we say 8:40? Sorry, 9:40.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Councillor Rahman, Ejaz Rahman, could you please move your motion?
Sorry, I thought I'd delay by another minute or two. Well, I think all the stuff that we had today with the speakers and everything, and the emails that me and Shaista received, and for pro and against, sort of just serves the point of the motion that it's been very divisive for the whole city, especially in East Oxford. We have done our research. We have looked at research. Lots of people said that we haven't. The congestion has certainly increased. I think the proof in that has been where the county council have, in February, operated a temporary traffic light system to ease the congestion. They trialled that for a week. I'm not sure of the results of that, but it didn't look too good. Going on from that, local businesses, 80% against them. You know, at the moment, because of Oxford, County Road's goodwill, Oxford traders and people who are willing to still come to County Road because they think it's a good opportunity for them. But there has been lots of businesses that have started and then gone down. I know that earlier on we had a speaker say that that wasn't the case, but actually that is the case. There is many businesses that have started and failed, but because of the popularity of Cowley Road, there's more people still willing to take a chance. We've had many Cowley Road businesses oppose it, not many that support it at all. And lots of stuff, as people said on there, is there's lots of benefits for city roads that have the LTNs. You know, for each road that has a benefit, there's one that has suffered immensely. For Divinity Road, you've got Moral Avenue. For Pleasant Road, you have Holloway. And the impact's been severe on those roads. You know, it's not as if residents don't live on these boundary roads, that people call them. They're not boundary roads, they're just normal roads. People live there. Cowley Road has more residents than Divinity Road ever had and ever will have. Do you know why? Because it's a bigger road. So nobody can say that Divinity Road is a beneficial over, so it's good. Cowley Road is a business road. It's not. Residents live on that road. Unless you can find houses for them, which we can't because we have a problem with housing, right? We can't say that. At the same time, you've just let, on today, you've just let £800,000 go to BMW. And guess what they make? Cars. So it's a contradiction in what you're trying to do. And I'm really sorry. And I was elected on a manifesto of trying the LTNs, trying the LTNs, and I stand by that, but in my opinion, they failed. And once they failed, we should be big enough, broad enough, and strong enough to say, you know what, this has failed, and we should take it from there, and the duty is upon us, as elected members, to find solutions, not to be stubborn with one solution, and even if it doesn't work, just carry on with it. Going along from there, we suggested that congestion has taken all this time to get here. It's not happened overnight. The lady earlier on quoted 2013, 2014. You know, if we had free bus passes, if the county was serious about changing people's mindset about travelling. Okay, I'll just wrap up, sorry. Okay, just the last point I'll quickly make. I will have time to speak at the end. 34% of car ownership is in East Oxford. 68%.
Please, can we stop now?
Okay. I thought we could support the motion, be strong enough, be brave enough. It's not good enough to say that it's the county that are going to deal with this. We talk about, that's just a lazy argument. We talk about national government issues all the time. We cannot just say that we're not...
Okay, can we have the person who's going to second the motion?
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I understand that it should be 5 minutes rather than 3 minutes for the proposer.
But we've timed it, right?
At 3 minutes, I believe.
Can I carry on with that?
Just carry on then.
Right, okay, so I'll probably blab it on at the end, I don't know what I said at the front. Right, I'll go back to school children on buses. Right, today's buses, today's children even, will go on the buses, and do you know what, tomorrow, even without any research, they'll become the adults of this city. And when they become adults... And
apologies, I've just confirmed it is 3 minutes. If you could kindly conclude your statement, thank you.
Right, okay, I will complete. So, as transport's increased over the years, right, we need to put in measures that will slowly change people's mindset. Free bus passes for kids will tomorrow make them the adults, and they will be public transport will be normal for them. These draconian measures just ain't going to cut it. They're just going to divide communities, and they do not work. Lord Mayor, I know it's your last council, so thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Is the motion seconded? Councillor Shaista Aziz? Councillor Aziz, do you wish to speak now or at the end of the debate?
At the end of the debate, thank you.
There has been an amendment proposed by Councillor Douglas. Councillor Douglas, Sandy Douglas, I understand that you are proposing to make a minor wording amendment in line with 11.20F of the Constitution. This has been circulated to the Chamber and the additional changes are shown highlighted in yellow. Please, can you please move your amendment? Here it comes round. So we are nearly bringing all the papers round.
Could I perhaps just say that the minor amendment to the amendment is to the point regarding the WPL?
And WPL stands for?
Workplace Parking Levy.
Thank you. Can I get one as well, please? Can Councillor Sandy Douglas go ahead and move the amendment?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Before I was elected last year, I was advised that the Littlemore campaign would be difficult and nasty due to bitter disputes about traffic policy. County Councillor Trish Elphinston and I, we stood on a platform which tried to bridge that divide by tackling some of the unintended side effects of the Church Cowley LTN, while keeping as much as possible of the benefit. The changes we proposed included exemptions for disabled blue badge holders and carers on one road, Littlemore Road. 94% of Littlemore voters supported a candidate asking for change to the LTN. Even the Lib Dem candidate pledged to, I quote, make LTNs fairer by negotiating camera exemptions for blue badge holders and carers. I'm grateful to the County Cabinet member, although he's not here now, for a number of discussions since then. But what's changed? Next month, there's going to be ANPR on that road with exemptions for taxis and emergency service vehicles. About time. Nothing for blue badge holders, nothing for carers. And if we don't feel our concerns as councillors are taken seriously, how do you think residents feel? I focus on one very, very local issue. But if we step back, we all know that the stakes across the city are high. Road safety, health, climate, all of them are critical. Congestion and poor public transport impose a regressive tax on residents' time, especially those living in less well-off outer parts of the city who can least afford it. But the title of this motion mentions something I think is even more important, namely our citizens' trust in local democracy. Because without that trust, those of us who wish to enact progressive policies won't be able to do so. Progressive councillors will be replaced by populists who have no solutions. And equally, those of us representing residents wanting change need to come together. We need to decide whether to grumble from the sidelines or do the difficult job of proposing and fighting for solutions which can win majority support. LTNs are popular in some central areas. They're extremely unpopular in Church Cowley and Littlemore. We can't treat them the same. This amendment reflects that. It calls for moderate relaxation of LTNs where there is clear and sustained local demand for change. If residents of certain areas don't want change, this amendment respects that. The other points in the amendment have a similar emphasis on listening to our residents and learning, tailoring solutions to local needs. We can get past congestion and rancour to a future with safe roads for all and outstanding public transport. But we're only going to do that if all sides are listened to and respected, and we bring people along with us on that journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, who's seconding the amendment? Councillor Mary Claxton. Was it Councillor Anna Relton, please?
I will formally second it now and speak later.
Thank you. I'm now going to start asking for speakers. So those of you who wish to put your hand up, do it now. Right, go. Linda, Mike, Alex, yeah, and Nigel, Mary, Jabu. Is that hand up behind you? Councillor Linda Smith, please.
Thank you. I wish we weren't spending so much time talking about this issue. As the leader said earlier, we're not the Highways Authority, and there's so much that this council is responsible for that I would rather we were talking about. But I do have to speak on this issue because when I'm out knocking on doors in Lye Valley, it's all people want to talk to me about, and I'd really rather be talking to them about other things as well. But I've made a promise to them that whenever I'm given the opportunity, I will speak up and reflect what I hear from them. And the overwhelming majority of people in Lye Valley, that the LTNs are not working for them. And it's not about, as we heard about from the speaker earlier, about them, not wanting to take their 20 minutes of daily brisk exercise. It's about them, in floods of tears, thinking about how they're going to drop the kids off at school or care for elderly relatives and combine that with the day-to-day, getting around, going to work, everything they need to do. And they can't understand why they're not being listened to when we ask for changes such as opening up the LTNs when there's roadworks on Holloway, for example. But as Sandy said, there are winners and losers with the LTNs. And I'm reliably informed by Councillor Hunt that people in Divinity Road love their LTN, as people do elsewhere. And so that's why the answer isn't just to rip them all out, as this motion proposes. That isn't the responsible thing to do. The responsible thing to do is to work on compromise, make them work better, and get the adjustments which are needed for residents. There have been some very good suggestions made by Labour councillors at the County Council about removing some bollards. I think that's worth exploring. This motion talks about exemptions for residents, turning them off during off-peak hours. I think those are things which should be seriously considered. So let's vote for this motion and move forward and start talking about the things that we've actually got control over. Councillor Mike Rowley, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Given that this council doesn't have the power to make policy on this issue, what we can do, and what I believe this amendment does, is find ways of bringing people together rather than identifying what divides Oxford people, and in making sure that the voices of all our communities with often diverse and conflicting opinions and interests are strongly heard by the Highways Authority as the decision maker. Now, I think in the real world we all know that the need for traffic reduction and the need to reduce congestion, the need to reduce pollution is not going to go away in Oxford. I also don't think there's anybody in this chamber who would disagree that the way that LTNs and the proposed traffic filters have been introduced has left a good deal lacking in terms of consultation and in terms of implementation. what we need to encourage the county council to do, browbeat them to do, whatever verb you choose, is to try to come up with solutions that can achieve all objectives, to reduce pollution, to reduce traffic, to ensure access across the city for all our citizens, especially those with disabilities, those with health and mobility problems, those who need to take children to school and so on, and perhaps most important of all, make work faster and faster towards the goal that nobody should die on our roads in Oxford. I think that this amendment does this. It asks for quite a comprehensive reconsideration of what has been a botched implementation of a well-intentioned idea. I believe that it's not too late to fix the situation. We can, if we work together, if the county council plays ball, which I know Labour councillors on the county council are working towards, we can come up with solutions that are good for all of the people of this city and do not set people who use different modes of transport against one another. So with that, I commend the amendment.
Councillor Saj Malik.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Earlier it was saying this stuff was brought by the Tories, but it was the Labour who done the grubby back deal with the Tories. If I remind these Labour councillors, when Tory was running the minority administration, £50,000 was proposed by John Sanders, second by Howard in their budget, because that's where they made the grubby deal, and they said, well, Labour will support your budget, and that's how it was done. So that's the history lesson for these lot sitting here who was trying to, so let me remind, that's on the record, you can check on the website. And secondly, LTN is brought a misery to thousands of people. It is a class war, there's nothing to be amendment. And now I can see that Labour tone is changing here, and they're trying to find a very good solution, but till now, at the county council, they've all been supporting every single motion to carry on with it. And now, on the doorstep, they are trying to blame everything on the Lib Dems. Oh, they are the one doing, and we are the one who are trying to find the compromise. Well, not long ago, there was a motion here about how you get the people into connecting to democracy. I said with the honesty. And I saw a 2021 Labour manifesto here, where it was saying they're going to support the LTNs. And guess what? I just saw the manifesto 2024. They don't want the mention of LTNs. How nice. Well, suits you, because around the corner there's the election. So be brave enough and tell the people, you are the one who were supporting, and you are the one who stood on the ticket and once never had the courage to put in your leaflets. Okay? And these amendment does not go far. Because when I say there is a class war, it's creating a misery for my residents on Holloway and the Oxford Road. And City Council own pollution data says the breach limit has been taken more than once a year. The tool master has been shut, couple of cafes been shut, business are suffering between 40 to 60% fall between 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock. These are the things which you need to consider. So basically, bringing these amendments does not go far. You try to tell the ANPR is going to speed up the buses. If anybody knows the traffic system in Oxford, bus filter would have been on the old road. You try to put a bus filter on Holloway when all the traffic coming from Old Road, Wood Farm Road going on the bypass. Bypass is already chock-a-block up. You have divided the community because supporting the LTNs, and now all of a sudden you're trying to become a savior to bring these amendments and saying, oh, we are the one trying to find a solution. You're absolutely not finding a solution. You are equally responsible putting a misery on the people of Oxford.
Okay, Alex Hollingsworth, please.
I'll be a bit briefer than that, I think. Just a couple of points. The reason I'm supporting this amendment because it makes a frankly appalling motion slightly less appalling. I think Zahara Plummer in her speech summed up everything that I believe. I particularly wanted to see the removal of the word divisive from this because frankly that is a recipe to do nothing ever on anything. Everything you do that has any meaning or be disagreed about. If you refuse to act because somebody disagrees with you, you're essentially not just conservative with a small c, but conservative with a very large C. So removing that, I think, is justification enough for this amendment. I think there is some fair criticism. I've made it in public, so I'll just repeat it. I think the LTN should have come in after the bus gates and not before. That was obvious. I made that argument in private and in public, and the then, not the current, excellent cabinet lead for transport, but his predecessor flatly refused to engage with that proposition, which I regret, and I think it has had the effect that we've seen. But to propose to not go ahead because something is divisive, I think is a coward's way out, and for that reason, I'm happy to support this amendment. It is worth noting, just on the subject of things which are popular and not, in 2021, the elections in Carfax and Jericho, 90% of the vote went to candidates who stood on a platform of keeping Bolton Street closed, and it was reopened the day before the elections, and unfortunately that's never been changed. So democratic mandates seem to not work in either direction, I guess.
Councillor Nigel Chapman, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This amendment reflects the conversations that I and many councillors have been having on the doorsteps with voters in my ward and elsewhere. Many of them, those voters, understand that we can't continue as we are with the level of traffic congestion we have. They want to see a fairer and more locally responsive way forward for the county's travel plans. So it calls for some tweaking of the LTNs as we take the opportunity of moving away from the inflexibility of solid bollards to ANPR cameras to monitor LTN access. A vociferous minority, egged on by independents and their substantive motion, would like to see the whole scrapping of LTNs and traffic filters. This is unrealistic and disingenuous, and leaves us with no practical measures to support our vital bus services, which lie at the heart of any plan to reduce car usage. I do not believe that the changes this amendment is seeking will undermine LTN substantially. Where there is clear local demand, allowing some more access to motorists outside school hours will not kill off all the benefits of them. Supporting carers and blue badge holders get around a bit easier is a modest request. It would signal that County Council is prepared to listen, set an example of what has been a polarised and damaging introduction to the first part of its travel plans. There has to be give and take. And if the Lib Dems and the Greens on the County Council continue their inflexibility, I do really worry about what it will mean for the bigger prize of less congestion and pollution across the city, not just in East Oxford. Many car drivers may simply refuse to change their behaviour to be of assistance to these long-term plans. Without that goodwill, the bus services will continue to be at risk. The amendment also highlights the need for a comprehensive level of engagement about the travel filters before they're introduced once the Botley Road works are completed. I have lost count the number of times I've had to explain the system of exemptions. It has been a long time since the county got on the front foot on these detailed plans. I still think the case for the Marston Ferry Road bus filter is weak, especially on Saturdays. I would have waited to see the overall impact of the city centre ones first. There is a widespread fear across voters in many parties that the bypass, Marsh Lane and Headley Way will be overwhelmed in rush hours. But only time will tell if these fears are to be realised. So, in a spirit of conciliation and reconciliation, I urge some give and take around a set of issues where feelings run high and it has the potential to grow public trust in all of us. And so I ask you to support the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Mary Clarkson, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just as a clarification, Sergeant Malik talked about people who've changed their mind. I have spoken and put in leaflets publicly since 2019 my opposition to the Marston Ferry Road bus gate. I started off open-minded about the LTNs and I don't think they work, and what I'm calling for here is a bit of pragmatism and some humility and prepared to make changes. Like Councillor Linda Smith, I don't want to see them scrapped altogether, but I think we need to see changes and we need to see some streets opened up. And I support the call for better buses and school streets, and I've been vocal in the past about the need for school streets and a freight consolidation hub, which the county haven't got around to sorting out. But the sequencing of the LTN measures have all been wrong. There have been no bus improvements to date, only cancellations and delays. They have made public transport less of an option for many. After 3 years, traffic has not evaporated, it has simply been displaced. The LTNs have made cycling from Headington and Marston more dangerous because of the increased traffic on Headington Hill, Marston Road and St Clements, with cycle lanes regularly blocked by vehicles trying to cross junctions. The Marston bus service is regularly late. A resident of mine, no longer able to cycle, has lost work because she can no longer get between meetings by bus. Elderly residents are having to pay twice as much in taxi fares to get to medical appointments. While we rightly give priority to blue badge holders, there are many people who are forgotten and excluded by these policies. The frail elderly, those with temporary mobility problems, pregnant women. And as a governor of 2 primary schools, I have conducted exit interviews for teaching staff, living outside the city, leaving jobs here that they love, but going to jobs at schools in county towns, teaching jobs. The increased journey times since the LTNs came in have led to longer hours, more stress, less family time. Teachers, of course, cannot work from home or pick their start time. And with a shortage of teachers and half of Oxford teachers living outside the city due to housing costs, this will only get worse if there's no change. It's great that children at Larkwise can cycle and walk safely to school, but the effect of the LTNs is that vulnerable pupils at other Oxford schools lose their SEN teacher. If that's the effect, then any benefit is questionable. Please support the amendment.
Thank you very much. Can I have Councillor Jabunala Hartley?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment because I feel that in this LTN argument there's a missing conundrum in terms of the communities that are affected. A lot of African people backgrounds are working in these communities and they are having to use cars to get to their clients. And the issue here is who is, this whole issue has been divisive, but I have never sat on the fence in my life because frankly that is disgusting. I feel this issue here needs to be taken into consideration in terms of people's livelihood. We have to really focus on the fact that the pollution, what the LTNs are intended to do in terms of shifting the pollution so that people can live healthier lives, what it's done is created pollution in the high density areas where the traffic has been stuck. But also, before I go, because this is probably, if I don't get elected, this will be my last address. I understand that in this council, I am the Diane Abbott of this Oxford City. I find it difficult to understand how you can talk about racism and not mention anti-black racism in this council. When Diane has been threatened, we've been shot, and you talk about 2 types of racism. I wanted to put that in context. I am a South African, and I am proud of the stand we have taken at the ICJ. You people need to look at yourselves.
Please kindly speak to the motion, David.
I've spoken. There was no need for people to shout at me here when Shaista told me I should speak. It's disgusting. I don't have a speaker in this house. I don't have a microphone.
Okay, I understand. Please take a seat. Thank you.
I'm angry. I'm now an angry black woman. And I want you to remember this. I am the Diane Abbott of this city.
Thank you. The Lord Mayor's just asked me to update on where we are. We've got 8 members wanting to speak on the amendment.
9, 10.
If everybody takes 3 minutes, that means we will have 6 minutes after we've debated the amendment, and we will run out of time to debate the actual motion. So either happy with that, and we will have to take another vote to extend the timing of the meeting and suspend standing orders, or members could make their points in a more succinct manner, and we will get to that point more quickly. Okay.
Councillor Smerton, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I will be brief. The amendment starts well. It does some needed things to the underlying motion, but it does then add new problematic statements. It would have the council sign up to a declaration that there hasn't been enough consultation when there has been thousands and thousands of consultation responses. And as is often the case, it is taken to mean that it wasn't a referendum, and it wasn't a referendum. It would have us add an extra statement in stating that there is no accommodation for people with disabilities, and the traffic filters include exemptions for blue badge holders, for disabled tax class vehicles, for health and care workers, for people providing informal care, for people requiring frequent hospital treatments, and on and on and on. Yes, there's always more that we can do, but we really mustn't sign up to the statement that there is no accommodation for disabled people, because if this council puts forth such a statement, people might believe it and not take advantage of the accommodations that are being made for good reasons. The motion would have us make a pledge in favour of specifically this concept of LTNs that only apply during school hours. I think it would be pointless and counterproductive to do that specific intervention. That is a particular intervention where the only time when the LTNs are causing aggravation is at the peak times. Opening them at the off-peak times when circumventing them is relatively easy serves nobody. It doesn't help the people who are frustrated by them, and it means that the people who are using them as quiet cycle routes, which is happening little by little and is a really positive change that we need to continue, those people will then have fresh traffic to compete with. They will have fresh streams of 4x4s coming through the LTN side by side with them, and that's going to dissuade them from doing something that we really, really hope that they do. Because of the fact that the amendment, it removes some things that need removing, it then adds fresh problems of its own. I think it would be better to vote against the amendment and then vote against the motion as a whole. Thank you.
Councillor Mark.
Thank you very much. I too have been in conversation with residents across the wards I represent, and also with Councillor Trish Elphinstone, and we share our thoughts. My constituents were pleased to hear it wasn't my idea and it was the Lib Dems' transport policy. I also agree what has been said, so I shan't repeat. We can all accept congestion as a problem for Oxford. Progressive transport policy with traffic has been put forward as a solution as we go forward. Vision Zero and safer roads. This is an objective that needs to be upheld. Climate justice is important for the future ahead, but social justice is important too. If we are to maintain a faith in local democracy, we need to bring residents with us, and meaningfully. There must be a balance between climate and social justice, and we must represent our communities and work together to bring about a change that works for each area. One size does not always fit all. Every division and ward has its own circumstances under which transport policy can work. Some areas are thriving and others are struggling. Councils know their wards and understand what works best for residents and representing their views accordingly to the need of each community. The proposed adaptations to the NPR should not be seen as a threat to climate justice, zero carbon or Vision Zero. The proposed progressive policy is robust enough to allow for a workable compromise where is needed and can work to readdress the balance of fairness for residents. It is the means to bring residents along with us to achieve a reduction in congestion, safer roads, and most importantly, happier residents where more people will benefit from progressive transport policy. Do not be afraid of compromise, embrace it meaningfully. Let's adapt a progressive transport policy that works for all our residents and brings people together. Let's also hope the County Council also defer and listen to residents, especially when it comes to the proposed bus gates and Holloway and Marston Ferry Road. I support what is proposed for transport policy. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Shastaziz, would you like to speak now?
Yes, Lord Mayor. And before I start, I would like it to be acknowledged that Councillor Jabunala Hartley has left the chamber due to hurt that she's felt and due to her feeling disrespected, so I would like that to be acknowledged. And this also speaks actually to the heart of why we put this motion forward. I'm very proud that we put this motion forward because it's opened up an opportunity to have a genuinely real discussion about transport policies. Anybody here who doesn't think these transport policies are divisive is being disingenuous. Anyone here who doesn't think that these transport policies are not impacting people in terms of across social economic lines or racial lines or gender lines, those who are people on zero-hour contracts, those with precarious employment prospects, again, they're being disingenuous. I'd like to read you a quote here from a very well-known Oxford independent business owner, known to many of us here, Mr. Ahmed Mohammed, owner of Zata Bake Restaurant. I'm sure many of us are familiar with his wonderful restaurant. He gave an interview to the Oxford Mail, to the Oxford Times, where he says, Cowley Road is a multicultural road. People from all over the world have their own shops here, but I've lost almost 35% of my customers. They don't have these traffic policies in Summertown. People in North Oxford can speak the language of the councillors and Oxford educators so they can write a nice email and get support, but Cowley Road business owners can't always express themselves. They are actually nice people. They just want to get on with their life and not lose their business. And this is why we put this motion forward. For years and years, there has been a nonsensical and disingenuous narrative coming from this council, which is that they are not responsible for transport policy. Well, yes, that's true. However, if you rubber stamp a policy that is not working, that is divisive, that is pitting communities against each other, that is causing absolute chaos and devastation, and I do use that word purposefully, if you're rubber stamping that, then you are part of the problem. So what we have in Oxford now is a disastrous situation where there's this us and them. You can either be pro-cycle or anti-car. You can't be someone who believes that we need to sort out our roads, we need to have less traffic, and we need to be accelerating our response to the climate crisis, which again disproportionately is impacting people of colour around the world, including members of the diaspora. We've got to this situation because the politicians in this chamber and in County Hall have got us to this position. So the reason why we brought this motion here is we want an honest discussion. We want to ensure that people's voices are heard. I'll end up on this note. Councillor Rahman and I are elected members of this council. We have broad shoulders. We have received absurd emails from members of the public, not absurd because we disagree with them. The language they've used has been very, very inflammatory. And some of the things we've been accused of have been absolutely ridiculous. This is the tone of the so-called debate. We need to lift the tone of the debate. We need to listen to people. We need to understand that these policies need to be changed. We are not saying that we should not be stopping the high levels of traffic on the roads. We're not saying that. What we're saying is we need a rethink. And we purposefully mentioned Littlemore. I find it quite interesting that there was attempts to try and remove reference to Littlemore in the amendment. And why is the amendment crossing out private schools? Private schools need to be named. Let's name the elephants in the room. Private schools create colossal amounts of traffic on the roads of our city. They need to be named and they need to be dealt with.
Yeah, I'm speaking now. I agree, and I thank you, Sandy, for bringing the amendment to this. I agree that blue badge holders and carers must be exempted. I think it is about compromise, and I think it's about time County Council listen to it. Like Mary, residents listen to it. Residents, should listen to the residents, sorry. They should reconsider Holloway and Marston Ferry, and I think the support for call for better buses and sequence has been real. And real people have been disproportionately affected. I've said it right from the offset when it started happening in Temple Curley, and I'll say it again. People have been disproportionately affected as a result. Pregnant women and people with big families, and those who are disabled elderly as well. So that's all my part from me. And the next person who's speaking is Councillor Tiago.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I want to say two things. One is I'm working in automotive industry, and I think it's very, very important we understand we need to use the car in a smart way. This means, of course, it's not possible. We have one person, one car everywhere, short distance and so on. The car is not for that, in my perspective. And it's important to persuade and encourage all the communities to use different modes to move in a city. Okay? And I be honest with Little More residents since the beginning. What I'm doing all the time is, and it's also very important, is the first thing I do is listening all the residents and opinions about this issue. It's true, this is a big issue in Little More, and I'm listening what they said. But also, I share these points. We need to thinking different perspectives about that. What this means, I want to say thank you very much, Sandy, for bringing this motion, or amending this motion. And I want to refer also, one thing is very important and special for the profile of Little More is very important, and also in the last year, in the last consultation, one thing the County Council said he will review, they said technical is not possible to implement, said it's important to, with the NPRs, to give exceptions to the blue budgets holders and cares. And I think this is very important, especially for the profile of Little More. They have a lot of old people and they need support. Another thing I think is very important also is also something I support and also said needs in Little More is a more frequency bus. Apparently, after October, Little More will have more frequency bus. What does mean? I think well done. I think potential will go with a good track for more people in Little More support or at least accept this policy. But it's important also. I finished. Thank you.
Councillor Jaffrey Marbini.
So just a couple of brief points. Firstly, I do think most residents don't really distinguish between city council and county council. When the policy was brought in and when it first started and county council and Labour group were supporting it, to residents' mind, Labour are supporting it. So they don't really distinguish between the two. I do really want to pick up Councillor Hollingsworth and him saying that this is a terrible motion because it uses the word divisive, but I'm sorry, I have to completely agree with Shyster here that it is divisive because those who can afford it and live in different parts of the city are not as affected as those who can't afford it, essentially, and are really, really affected. And I also agree about the point with the private school point. I do think that they do cause a hell of a lot of congestion that we see at school hours. So my last point is this. I think it's interesting when Councillor Carson was speaking that she almost basically gave an amazing speech to say why we should scrap them all together because it's not working and it's not working and it hasn't worked in the beginning and it was poorly implemented and actually public transport should have been improved to some extent before any of these measures were introduced. So I don't really understand, is the point of the amendment so that when we go to election you can say to people who like the LTNs we voted to keep them, and you can say to the people who don't like the MTNs, we voted to scrap them. And people don't really like that kind of fence sitting because actually, especially when we are not the authority, it doesn't really make much sense. And if you're saying they're not working, then let's get rid of them.
Councillor Elton.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. So, a couple of years ago, almost to the day, a few hundred people stood on the plane and I was there with them. Link Felch had just been killed and the mood was a strange mix of both anger and grief. Many of us had stood together the month before to mark the death of Ellen Monaghan at Oxford Parkway. Link's husband was there, Ellen's sister was there, and Oxford had another ghost bike. I think a few of us broke a little bit that day, not just because it was so close to another fatality, but because we all knew in our heads and our hearts that it actually could have been any one of us. It could have been our spouse, our sibling, our children, standing on that roundabout.
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
This, quite simply, is the legacy of the status quo. The fact that people die on their way to work for no reason is the status quo. And that's the air pollution in our lungs, the tyre particles in our oceans, the spiraling consumer debt by cars, the pavements blocked and broken up by parked vehicles, the stationary park and ride bus on the Abingdon Road. Saying something must be done while rejecting every plan is the same as doing nothing. I didn't get into politics to do nothing, and nor did you. All plans have downsides, and there is no magic solution to these problems because that keeps everybody happy, because if there was, somebody would have already done it. Those of you who know my politics will know that one of the things I care about is people dying on our roads. I'm pleased with the small bits we've done on the city's fleet and by planning, but I know it must largely be the work of others. However, what I can and will do is 1, not shut up about it, and 2, support schemes that are proven to reduce danger on our roads. I'm pretty disappointed with the confusing of different objectives for different schemes in this motion. LTNs and school streets are primarily about reducing road danger. They've never been about reducing congestion. The traffic filters are to reduce congestion, so our bus service works. There is no replacement scheme suggested, from which I draw the conclusion that the status quo of 3% traffic increase every year and the eventual failure of our public transit system is acceptable, and it is not. Similarly, just that segregated psychopaths everywhere is a signal that the problem is not fully understood. There was no space to put one on Abingdon Road, nor Iffy Road. You could do bits of Cowley Road if you removed every single bit of on-street parking, but for the most part, they are a geometric impossibility in Oxford. Similarly, those who think school streets are some sort of uncontroversial panacea have clearly not been driven into or yelled at on a barrier like I have, and I'm not sure why only private school students should get safer roads outside their school gate. I look forward to you supporting the newest tranche starting in April for some of our state schools. A vote for this motion without this amendment is a vote against buses, it is a vote against choice, and it is a vote for road danger. Thank you.
Councillor Southwell, did you want to make a point of order?
I want to. I think what Councillor Relton just has referred, those deaths unfortunately happened with HGV vehicles, not with the LTN and the cars. And she has misled
That's
the
not
council.
point of order.
No. She
Okay,
should
Councillor Ejaz Rahman.
Councillor
Ejaz Rahman, would you like to speak?
The council. She should apologize to
Councillor Southwell, thank you. Councillor Ejaz Rahman, last, you want to speak?
Thank you, yeah.
No, I won't, thanks.
Please, can we not speak like this? Councillor Southwell, you need to come out or you're going to have to leave. Councillor Ejaz Rahman, there's only like 8 minutes left.
Okay, thank you.
For the whole thing?
If everybody's finished, I'll start, shall I? Thank you.
Yes.
Right, we're not cowardly, we're not disingenuous. We stood up because we've got broad shoulders on what's not working. It's amazing that nobody across that side has said, you know what, let's have these in North Oxford. Let's have them in South Oxford. Let's have them in East Oxford. Just in East Oxford. Why just in East Oxford, where there's only 34% ownership of cars? 34%. Oxford has 68% ownership of cars. I'm not against cycling. I'm not against walking. My mum's 74 years old. She still walks. And I help her sometimes. But some of her journeys are now become a nightmare. Right? But nobody wants to listen. It's a lazy argument that we have nothing to do with this. And we talk about everything else, from house building for the Conservatives, with the big C, whatever you want to talk about. We have all these motions, but on this occasion we don't want to speak about it. Right, and then the funny thing is, no, we don't know best. Ward councillors don't know best. Residents know best. 80% of East Oxford businesses know best, because it's their businesses. I go down there once a day, twice a week, once a month, and when I go on my round and I knock on a few doors, they're there every day. They experience this every day. Nobody in Summertown experiences this every day. Why didn't they go into? Why don't you support them going into Banbury Road? You know what? All the people that are against them would say, yeah, we want to be a fair city. We'll have them everywhere. And then we would have taken that. Everybody would have taken that. You haven't done that. It's in East Oxford. And now, tacitly, everybody just agreed that, you know what, let's make a few changes because that would be the best thing. No, East Oxford means something to East Oxford residents. It means to the people that live there, the businesses that work there, that have their livelihoods there, their children. I'm sorry, it's not acceptable. You can say whatever you want, it's not acceptable, and when May comes, when you go to live, you need to be honest, everybody needs to be honest, and say, we're for these, we're against these, we don't want them in North Oxford because They don't deserve them. They've got some nice bollards in there. West Oxford doesn't matter. South East doesn't matter. Do you know what? We're not going to talk about it because we're not the authority. Sorry.
Councillor Ahmed Latif.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think the amendment brings some positive suggestions, such as looking at AMPR cameras, but the problem is that actually it railroads over the big elephant in the room, and I was talking about a lot of these things before. Councillor Douglas, I know, has done some good consultation with his local residents and was elected to the council. I think we need to be clear, these policies are divisive. I think we've heard that. And for members to sit here and suggest that they're not divisive, it comes across as we're councillors, we know what's best for you, and I think we need to be really clear that the electorate won't put up for that. The other thing is, we're not the Transport Authority, but as has already been mentioned, this was in the City Council manifesto for the elections in 2021. And we have written to the County Council on other things, and it's interesting that many of the suggested amendments try to lay the blame of this at the County Council's door, but again, as has been said, it's pleasing to see that the policy has shifted quite significantly on the administration benches, and that will have been due to some of the work that's been done from councillors who have now resigned from the administration. But you can't have your cake and eat it, I'm afraid. So what you really need to do is vote on the substantive motion and let the residents know where you stand. The other two things I want to say is that there's real problems in this regarding the workplace parking levy and the impact it's likely to have on the NHS and schools. My wife is a teacher, I work as a GP. We already know that teachers are resigning from schools because of the LTNs and the traffic that's been caused. We know that GP practices and hospitals are struggling to recruit because of the traffic. Just the final thing that I want to mention really is, people have talked a lot about what about the evidence and so forth. We need to remember that there's been a direct cost to this council as a result of the LTNs. Those of us on the finance panel will have seen that the last financial year there was a cost of overtime of £168,000 to ODS workers, and whilst ODS is a different legal entity, we get the dividends from any profit from the ODS, and so that's a cost to the council, and the year before it was a cost of £140,000. So there's £300,000 here that the residents of Oxford have had to pay for this policy. So it is sometimes nice to sit on the fence, but you'll find it gets uncomfortable, and I think what you really need to do is you need to be brave and you need to vote down your amendment and let the residents know where you stand on this policy. The elections are around the corner, and you need to start being honest with the residents. Thank you.
Emma, can you just clarify, as we've only got less than 5 minutes remaining, what we would best way to go forward now?
We have 6 minutes remaining. I would suggest, unless members want to suspend standing orders and extend the meeting, that we allow Councillor Douglas to very briefly sum up, and then we vote on the amendment, and we allow Councillor Douglas to very briefly sum up, and then we vote on the substantive motion.
Okay.
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Douglas to sum up, then vote on the amendment. Sorry.
I would like to propose that we do suspend standing orders to actually debate the main motion as presumably amended, though I don't doubt councillors who've been waiting to speak on the amended motion rather than the amendment.
We will need a seconder for that.
Councillor Lucy Pegg. Can we have a vote then?
Can we 10 minutes.
First of all, we need to suspend standing orders, then we need to extend the meeting. You're going to have to vote twice if the first one goes through.
So, those suspending... Go on, you say it, please.
Those in favour of suspending standing orders? Those against? And those who are abstaining? The motion's been lost. Therefore, Councillor Douglas, if I could ask you to succinctly sum up, and then we'll move to the vote.
Thanks very much. I don't think residents want to see us sitting here and criticising each other and debating who said what a number of years ago. They want us to try and find solutions to the problems they're having now. Some people say that any attempt to compromise will just end up upsetting those on both sides or call it fence sitting. It's an easy line, but in my experience on the doorstep, it's completely wrong. There's a large group of people who aren't on either side. They're in the middle. These people can see the intended aims of the LTNs, that they help some people, but they impose real costs on others. They can see the sense in moving this debate away from the extremes. Everything must be scrapped or nothing can change. And so our job as their representatives is firstly to do the difficult work of coming up with workable solutions, and secondly, to exert the political pressure to bring about change. And on that, I think the voice of this City Council does matter. Thank you.
I will now take a vote on the proposed amendment. Please can I ask that members keep their hands raised until I indicate otherwise. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? One abstention at the back. One. Those in favour, please keep your hand up. Okay, those against? Amendments carried. Now we will vote on the amended motion. Please
Point
can
of order, Lord Mayor. We earlier agreed to extend the meeting to 9:40, and so we still have another 12 minutes to allow for the debate on this amended motion.
No.
But we suspended that, didn't we?
No, we didn't suspend the 60 minutes for allowed for the motion. We agreed to extend the timing of the open.
Okay, so point of order. I believe now the Constitution allows the proposer of the motion to speak again and summarise on the amended motion. And I believe also that the seconder of the motion had previously reserved their right to speak, and so they should also then be called for both those items, which may take us beyond the timing, and therefore a vote may not take place.
Unfortunately, the Constitution is very clear that only 60 minutes are allowed for motions. We are 1 minute away from the end of that. We do need to conclude business with that unless members vote to suspend standing orders, which they haven't. As such, we should move to debate.
Do you want to move to the vote?
Sorry, I don't think the Constitution says that, does it?
I will now take a vote on the motion. Please can I ask that members keep their hands raised until I indicate otherwise. Those in favour? Those against the amended motion?
Point of order. I think the Constitution is quite clear that the proposer of the motion gets to speak on the amended motion.
Those
That's
against?
not yet happened. Sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm raising a point of order. You don't just talk all over me. I'm asking the monitoring officer for her legal advice on this. It's a legal
The point of order has been answered. She has spoken to you.
I'm asking for clarification, Lord Mayor.
Would you like to clarify, Emma?
Thank you.
We have no vote to go past the 60 minutes for the debate on the motion.
Can you repeat that again, please, Fran?
In that case, then we can't vote if the time is gone, because Constitution
If we
also...
vote now, we're within time, so we could move to the vote.
Well, it's gone 9:30 now.
I will now take a vote on the motion. Please can I ask that members keep their hands raised until I indicate otherwise. Those in favour of the amended motion? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, the motion has been carried. No? It was different. Do it again? Okay, those in favour? Or just against?
We had a clarification from the monitoring officer that we had a minute left. That was 2 minutes ago.
Those against? We're in the middle of it. Those against?
Come on, you've got to...
Those against?
I asked
Those
clarification.
against?
I was told that we hadn't suspended the 60 minutes, and the 60 minutes have
Those
elapsed.
against?
60 minutes have elapsed. It's a legal matter, Lord Mayor. By you continuing, we don't just overcome that legal matter. It's the Constitution. You can't just talk over it, I'm afraid. The 60 minutes are up, I'm afraid.
Because you put your hands down, Emma, do you want to speak through the mic, please?
You have all voted, and we were checking numbers. My understanding, based on looking around the room, is that it was 18 all, in which case we require the Lord Mayor to use her casting vote. Now, I appreciate we've gone over time, however, that's due to the interruptions and difficulty with the vote. Therefore, if I could ask that we could conclude this item, because we can't leave it without a resolution.
Well, due respect to you monitoring officers, then that means you should have allowed them to sum up. This is to complete the debate. If you have to do the motion, if you want to follow the law, no disrespect, you're not allowing them, but you're allowing them to take a vote.
Chief, are you coming back?
The vote was taken in time, it's just simply that hands went down too quickly for officers to check the numbers. So you have all voted, we just want to make sure that we've got the numbers correct.
All those in favour? All those against? No, it's on the camera. All those against? Yeah, so why are you arguing then with me? So we've done it, we're saying we've done it, but then you keep bringing point of order. So do you want it counted or not, Aman?
Lord Mayor, I asked for a legal clarification over the Constitution, which says we're past 60 minutes.
I did ask him nicely. I said, can you all those who are against, put your hands up. Keep them up then. Have you counted now, Emma?
So, Lord Mayor, the vote is tied, therefore it refers to your casting vote. Are you voting, so to remind you, on the first vote you voted in favour. Are you voting in favour again or are you voting against?
I'm voting in favour. So the motion has been carried, thank you very much. Now closing the meeting. Thank you, the motion has been carried, thank you. We come to the end of the meeting. Thank you to members for being in attendance and for all those members in the public either watching the meeting in person or via the live stream. As this is my last council meeting as Lord Mayor, I would like to thank all the members and the officers for their support over the last civic year. It has been an absolute privilege being your Lord Mayor of Oxford City 2023-2024. I look forward to joining the future council meetings from the benches. The next meeting of the council, the annual meeting, is scheduled for Thursday the 16th of May 2024 at 5 p.m. Thank you.